tiny people and we play with them. Woo, woo. We paint tiny people and we play with them.
Hello and welcome to episode 25 of Miniatures Monthly at the Crate and Crowbar. My name is Chris Thurston and I'm joined by Tom Senior.
Hello.
And our first ever guest on Miniatures Monthly, a friend of pod and community member, Matt Chimp Ward.
Hello.
I didn't know how to refer to you, so I said all three names.
Yeah.
Where you've heard us in the past refer to our friend Chimp.
That is me. That is I.
Indeed. And you're fresh back from a CNC community outing to
Yes.
Brotherhood.
Yeah, a trial by fire.
This is an AOS team competitive event, I believe.
Yes.
I said that like I don't know what the word means, because I don't.
Capital C.
We'll go in more detail about it after the news, but if you had to sum up the how well it went with a noise, what noise would that be?
Oh, that was like a noise in 3 acts. I heard tragedy, heard a little bit of victory. We'll learn the results later.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, that doesn't qualify as a spoiler. So we were originally going to record this yesterday, which means nothing to you, listener, who has no idea what day it is for us now. But we decided to put it back a day because for once we were actually forewarned of Warhammer news. And it would have been actually incredible if we'd recorded it yesterday because we would have missed so much news. But we waited for the day after the reveals at LVO. Which means that we've actually got a ton of news for once, and it's relatively recent for once. The only word I've written here is Robert Horse. This references quite a substantial and increasingly weird expansion to the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yeah, so the Knights of Sidonia have arrived, and they're metal men riding metal horses. Or dogs. I think they look like horses to me.
They look like horses to me, but they are called Cerberus Sulphur Hounds.
Okay, well that's very doggish, isn't it?
It is. They on a steel horse they ride.
Yeah.
Do you want them dead or alive?
Not really.
Ooh.
I love the Skitarii range, the Admech range, but it's gone in so many wild directions now that I don't know how I could make them look coherent across the course of so many different styles and models.
Do you feel like the direction they've gone in is away from your desire?
The thing is, like, I envision mine as being like Wastelanders, which I guess the Knights of Sidonia does fit into that. They do look like kind of Wild West guys. With dual pistols on dog back.
And a flamer for a mouth.
Yeah, as in the Wild West. Happened often. But there are also new flyers with bat wings.
They're called Taraxii.
Taraxii. Fantastic.
That's Roman pronunciation.
Thanks. A Roman pterodactyl pronunciation.
So they sort of match the big ship that they revealed.
The ornithopter. It's all very Dune.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? So they've got bat wings now, some of them, and some of them have got dog horses. But then there's the transport, which looks like a World War II kind of
landing
craft.
Yeah.
And it's just a load of different, such weird, sporadic influences.
So you were cold on the transport before. You're still cold on the transport.
Still cold on the transport, despite the fact it's going to be quite useful, given that all I own is infantry. But earlier today I was gluing together some Sicarian rust stalkers, which are spindly cool dudes with big swords, who are quite cool special infantry. But I feel as though they're getting away from that into strange territory now with the Admech.
I feel like so there's like a dial, probably on Tom Walton's desk, that at one end is World War One,
yes,
and at the other is Wild Wild West.
Yeah, yeah,
and you can just turn that whichever direction you want. Like I feel like because I think there's an interesting because I think things like the Rust Stalkers fit this kind of like mad cyber beast contraption thing that the Admech have. But other things are like the Dune Crawler or like are more like they are like solid looking vehicles. They have some of that kind of, like older than if all Space Marine tanks are actually World War II tanks. A lot of Admech stuff is sort of World War One-ish, like the long coats and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
But then I feel like if like the Dragoons, like the Walkers were made now, they'd just be like one big man giving the tiny man the piggyback ride. You know what I mean? Like there's some sort of like difference in like when do you use it? When do you make a robot dog and when do you make a car? Seems to be a and
when do you make a
question
like a Castellan robot, which is a humanoid kind of 1950s
Yeah.
conception of what the future might look like.
So when the AdMech were first released, I think, they were 2 different armies. It was Skitarii and whatever the Servitor faction was called.
Right.
So that
Right.
is probably why some of it feels schizophrenic, why the newer stuff feels schizophrenic.
I mean, I think the Birdmen, the Teraxii, are a more successful version of the, what they're called, Space Marines in the Baby Bouncers.
Suppressors.
Inceptors or suppressors or both?
Both.
Yeah.
They're sort of like hovering troop with a big gun sort of thing. I feel like it worked a little bit better with these guys because they're spindly.
A bit more elegant. In a weird way.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to say about a cyber Birdman, but yeah, definitely. But no, I it's just I love the Ornithopter actually, and I think it's nice that there's stuff that matches it. But it does feel like that would be like a style of army. Like you go for beast heavy Mechanicus or tank heavy Mechanicus or something.
I was thinking earlier, like you could do a fun fast attack army with just a load of the flyers, the ship, a load of the kind of big, long, spindly runners, the striders, and that could look quite cool.
Yeah, I think that would look cohesive.
It'd probably play it'd be really fun.
I mean, there might be a danger here that we're approaching thinking about 40k like AOS players, where you sort of assume that you end up with one of everything in the army to some extent, whereas I think a lot of 40k is like, people don't necessarily have Scout Marines in their Space Marine force, or loads of tanks in their Space Marine force, or whatever. They can't, they're allowed to, but yeah. Speaking of AOS, and not to beat around the bush any further, love the name, Lumineth Realm Lords.
The Lumineth. The glowing lords of Hish.
So the naming convention for elves and ANS is to have F in the name.
It's element F. It's element F, adjective, type of sort of familial kind of bond. Ideneth, deep kin. Lumineth, realm lords.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably get when Malerian's lot come along. It will be Umbraneth, Shadowbound. I'm going to guess that now, and if I'm,
I was going to say Darklands.
yeah,
I feel like the first guess is a little better than that.
Yeah, this is why I don't work for GW.
I actually now kind of get to make up fantasy nonsense for a living to some extent, which is great because sometimes you just write needs a fantasy word and you come back to it later. You can drop anything in. It's fine.
Nice.
It's actually the easiest thing in the world. So this is High Elves.
Yeah. Been living in the realm of light all this time. No one's been able to get in because it's too bright.
Yeah.
And now here they are. And
4 years of everyone going, what are the High Elves going to look like?
Yeah.
And they look like High Elves.
they do look like High Elves. I was saying a few days before the reveal, I was chatting with you, Jimp, and was saying, I really miss the kind of ranked infantry of just spears and big hats. I think the kind of elegance of their white robes and the silver and the kind of nobility of that, the way they stand. But I was like, they're not going to do that. It's just going to be, they're going to be, all on weird kind of eagles that are also part dove and part Tyrannosaurus Rex or something. And then they reveal it, and it's like, oh, here are there's some high elves on horses. And they look great, and here are some high elves with spears, so they look really cool too. And it's just like it looks like a really old school infantry army.
And then the release file for AOS is there. It's like, here's Eltharion, he's back, but he's invisible now, and it's just his floating armour. Also, by the way, Teclis is back, and he's floating near his best friend, a griffin.
He's got
or a sphinx. A sphinx.
Yeah.
A sphinx.
What a strange, almost creepy model that sphinx is.
Yeah.
It's got this kind of human mask on its shallow face.
So the implication in the description on the website, on Warhammer Community, is it's called Selenar. And the implication is that it might be one of the god beasts, because it's supposed to be like the spirit of Hish or Hish or however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Which is not quite, god beasts traditionally are like the titans of AOS, but they sort of seem to have that level of importance. So it's not like his mount. It is like a friend he's made, presumably to replace Tyrion, who isn't present.
I've just started watching Picard, and Picard's retired to his ranch, and he's got a dog called Number One. And this kind of feels like the Tyrion Teclis relationship. It's an extraordinary model.
I was also, on a similar note, I was wondering, so Eltharion, who is a hero of the High Elves during the End Times, and actually a major focal character for the High Elves, who was turned into dust by Arcan, which is bad luck. He's back and his soul is encased in the suit of armor. So the story is, if you're not aware, is that they've successfully extracted enough elf souls from Slaanesh now to make them anew, and they fuck it up once, and that's the Deepkin. And they go and live in a barnacle under the sea. And then this time he's gotten it right, and he's made it, like...
We assume.
We
It
assume.
is Teclis we're talking about.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
He doesn't get it right very often.
Right. So what I'm asking is, what went wrong with Eltharion? Why doesn't he have a body? And is he permanently animating the suit of armor, or do they keep like the armor in a box and then like tip it out onto the battlefield and hope that he's around to
Pick it up.
to animate it?
I hope he is in the armour all the time, because the implication is that otherwise, invisible Eltharion is sort of wandering around in Hish, walking
naked.
into the shower.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit like the Avatar of Cain, isn't it, really? That's the kind of hollow suit of armour that they imbue with the spirit of Cain and goes around chopping people with a big sword. Maybe Eltharion's kind of like that now. That's summoning.
Yeah, well, because Tyrion ended the end times as the Avatar of Cain, I think. I'm pretty sure.
So Teclis was the...
Not Teclis. So Teclis was the embodiment of
Light.
Of light.
Yeah.
Tyrion, I think... Because wasn't it Malekith or Malerion that subsequently actually became the Phoenix King? This will mean nothing to people who aren't about it. And so there's this sort of big swapping of things, and now Tyrion is the big fight bastard.
Yes.
Or whatever. And,
Something like that.
Yeah, and now he's blind. And he's also gone.
Well, there's more models to be revealed, so we don't know.
That's true.
Tyrion might be part of the army. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, the range they've showed so far feels very incomplete.
Yeah. There's going to be probably some archers, probably some horse archers, and probably some heavy swordsmen.
Yeah, there is. It's hard to tell. And the first piece of concept art they show, which focuses on the horsemen charging, as it slowly pans out, you can see that the infantry character in the front of the frame is an archer. So I'm assuming that infantry kit is like because are they called the Venati or
I don't
Venari? I think it's Venari because it's like Numati because it reminded me that I think that seems like it's likely to be a dual kit. The cavalry seem like it's likely to be a dual kit with horse archers probably.
Oh, horse archers.
Yeah, that'd be right.
Do you like a horse archer?
I love the shield models because they've got little notches in the shields to rest their spears on, which is a kind of ode to ranked fighting, even though they're on round bases, of course.
I saw, we didn't talk about this because we were mid-pod break at the time, but obviously the old world is coming, whatever that means.
Oh, yeah.
That this kind of fantasy battle revival. And I saw, I don't always want to give heed to mad internet conspiracy theories, but I saw heed that, these might be an example of models that are compatible with both systems because there's not a lot about them that says you couldn't run them as Ulthuan High Elves, really.
Yeah.
Right? The line troops, I mean.
Yeah, right.
And it seemed legit to me, don't know. But that's assuming so many things about what Old World would even be that I don't know how useful that is.
I guess that applies to the Chaos Knights as well.
I don't think even Games Workshop know what Old Worlds is going to be yet, given its state when they released the video saying it's happening at some point in 5 years.
They said years, multiple, so who knows.
Yeah. So I mean, and there must be quite a lot of range left to show, presumably not unnamed heroes, because
mages,
yeah, and I doubt. What do you guys think of the Teclis model? Because I think that's interesting as a kind of.
It's a strange model. I think I like it, but it's weirdly kind of asymmetrical, which is I'm used to there being a certain type of hero pose to. It doesn't have to be completely symmetrical. There's a kind of
sideways on a big horse.
Yeah, often.
Given that it's from literally, that just occurred to me, it's from literally the realm of symmetry.
Yes, it's so lopsided. Yeah.
I think I know what you mean because it has two really prominent faces, right, as where the focal point would be, and neither of them are in the middle. Even with a model like Catacross, for example, which has a lot going on, there's a really clear central focal point for the model.
Yeah. There's also a kind of in the Catacross one, it elevates to him like he's also the tallest and biggest thing on the base. Whereas the biggest thing on that base is obviously this possibly a god beast thing, which is an extraordinary model in and of itself. But also, I'm not so sure about Tepes' poise as well, where it's kind of this
T-posing.
It's T-posing pretty much, and he just looks quite grumpy, which he always does, I suppose. He's always looked that way. So I'm not so sure about it. I need to see it in the flesh really to
Yeah, I saw it from a few different angles today, and I think it's obviously super impressive. Eventually they are going to have a model standing on like a single droplet of water.
Yes, yeah, right.
As opposed to many droplets of water, which they already did. But yeah, it was a little bit. I think you're right about Tech. I suppose the concept art they showed has him with his arms sort of swept back, like he's sort of gliding forward, like Doctor Strange or something, which I thought
really
was
nice piece of art.
slightly more dramatic than, like you say, the kind of praise the sun.
The hardest kit bash in the world, but you shouldn't need to kit bash that.
No, that's true. And I can imagine quite a few people maybe changing it so that he's simply riding the Sphinx.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of me wonders with the Teclis model is you've got the designers who are used to designing crazy AOS models being made to do rank and flank, and then someone goes, okay, now make Teclis, and they go, how can I show off my ridiculous ability to design plastic miniatures?
Yeah.
Let's make this an Eltharion. And he's holding on by the smallest bit of plastic.
I had the stupidest moment looking at Eltharion. So Eltharion is, because the armour is completely hollow, I was trying to look at how it all fits together, and obviously he's only like a sculpted piece of terrain.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell is his boot attached to? Because his boot isn't attached to any part of his armour. His boot is attached to the ground.
Yeah, right.
I had the same thought.
Yeah, exactly. But that's actually a genuinely cool model because it's like a magic trick. It's interesting because it's such a great model, but it's the first one that I think is like actively like almost like golden demon trap. Like there's probably no way, like, because it's like we just haven't. It doesn't have all of the traditionally hardest parts of a model to paint. No face, no skin, no like
the reverse of the Tidecaster Golden Demon bait.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, I also think Catacross is a Golden Demon trap as well, because it's like this amazing pre-built diorama, but the reason people always did absurd dioramas where everyone's standing on the stairs was to differentiate themselves.
Yeah.
So I reckon we're going to get like loads of Catacross, but on bigger sets of stairs.
I'm into this. I can't see it. Sounds fantastic. Teclis could be a Golden Demon. It's got that type of substance, texture, I suppose. Fur, flesh,
pants.
Big pants. He's got big pants, hasn't he?
He's got big pants on,
yeah.
I've seen lots of tweets with Teclis and MC Hammer in them.
That was inevitable, I suppose, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think. I'd love to see that model in person, because also you don't realise how big it is, because I think you pointed out earlier, Jim, that like Alariel is tall. Like even the Beetle's big, but she is big. So if Teclis is the same sort of size, which it'd be weird if he wasn't, then that is massive.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah.
We need to get someone doing some science to work out how big the base on that Sphinx is, and then we can extrapolate from there.
Yeah, right. Because if it's the massive Archaon base, like the 160 mil one, that it could be.
Yeah, it could be huge. I reckon he's massive. He's going to be big, isn't he, that Teclis? He's a god now. They get bigger. That's how it works.
That's just science.
It's just the law.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is fair. I guess you can either go wide or tall, because Ariel isn't that big. Because Nagash very tall, Archaon very tall.
Yeah,
like Teclis wide.
More Crusher wide.
Yeah, wide and like squat. Yeah, the easiest to transport. Most
much easier.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, speaking of Archaon, we didn't put it on this news list, but it was since we did the last podcast. AOS campaign books are a thing.
of course.
Wrath of the Everchosen is coming relatively soon, which is
So this was an interesting one. So this is in the Bone Daddies book.
Ossiarch Bone Reapers.
In the Bone Daddies book, there's almost like a throwaway bit where it's like, oh, and Catacross is invading the All Points, and you go, oh wow, that's a hook.
Yeah,
that's a hook for the next bit of AOS lore. And then Slaves to Darkness comes out, and it doesn't mention Catacross.
It doesn't mention Catacross. It mentions that like there's it's like there's been some disruptions at service on the line to the realm of death. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're experiencing 30-minute delays on the Chaos train.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the end of the Slaves to Darkness book says, Archaon is, calling in some other allies to help with this. And that's the Disciples of Tzeentch book, which runs with it again. And then the Disciples of Tzeentch book, all it does is confirm that the entire Necroquake was Tzeentch's fault.
Nice. Classic. I feel like that's doing Skaven a bit of disservice there.
It actually literally says in the Disciples of Tzeentch book that Tzeentch called in a favour with the Great Horned Rat. Like the Great Horned Rat owed him one. I like to think the Great Horned Rat simply will do anything to get to hang out with the big kids.
Yeah.
So it's like Tzeentch just does that kind of thing like, oh, do you want to come over and do my homework with me? For me? by bullying a bigger nerd, basically.
Oh.
Is Nagash in remission now? What's his thing?
He's chilling.
Just chilling.
He's got a 2-up save now. He's loving it.
Fair enough.
Dead and loving. And so Wrath of the Everchosen is the first apparently of multiple campaign books, which seem like they'll do what 40k campaign books do, which is expand select factions, give you an extra book to carry around.
That's exciting.
But yeah, it's interesting Slaves to Darkness getting one so soon. Well, it's Slaves to Darkness and OCR Bone Reapers so soon after both of their battle times.
That's really cool.
I wonder what the content in that's going to be, because the last one we had was Forbidden Power.
Yeah.
Which obviously didn't bring much by way of non-story content, shall we say. Gave us the Legion of Grief, and that's about it. Whereas a lot of the 40k books, all the Psychic Awakening stuff that's coming out, is GW throwing rules at Space Marines. As many rules as they can print.
So this big list of all the ones that are all the factions that are yet to get the Psychic Awakening treatment, and someone compiled this like what's yet to come, what the pairings are likely to be. Because Tower coming because they're getting a model, Orcs are coming because Skazgul is coming back. Space Wolves are due. There's a bunch of other things due on the list, and they've just simply forgotten to put Necrons on the list. It's like, we'll go to bed.
Not traditionally the most psychic of races.
No, but everyone's getting something, right?
Yeah.
Like the book after this one that they've just announced is like what? Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, Demons, and Admech.
Wow, even Admech are getting warfare.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm really hoping for Plastic Trazyn the Infinite. I think that's the most likely while they're doing this victory lap of characters people miss.
If you get a character at all, Grey Knights, Thousand Suns.
That's true. I was going to say Thousand Suns have kind of had their treats relatively
Grey
recently.
Knights, poor Grey Knights. No one cares about Grey Knights.
Yeah, I mean, they could just release a new spray can. Like, slightly brighter, bluer lead belcher, and you've...
They did that.
Not in a spray.
Not in a spray, that's true. They're missing a trick there.
But yeah, so no idea what Wrath of the Everchosen will mean other than I'm kind of excited about it. But I've also I've sort of paused some of my like really committed like Slaves to Darkness list building simply because it's going to get changed in it.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I think there'll just be a bit for the in the death section of that book saying, you know that bit in the Ocelot Bone Reapers where it says Petrifex Elite? Just put a big red cross through that. Here's some new words.
God damn, that's not impossible. Like the cover has Archaon fighting some skeletons, but not on Dorgar, which is interesting. Ooh. Dorgar's in the background eating some skeletons separately, and so this has led to the theory that I would love, which is Archaon on foot. Because Archaon went up loads of points and Dorgar got pointedly better. But because there's a whole Slaves to Darkness sub-faction built around Archaon that you can build it a few different ways, but because of the bonuses to Varangard, it kind of doesn't make any sense to not have Varangard, and that immediately accounts for at least 1,100 points. So there's probably not many armies there, whereas suddenly Everchosen as a faction becomes way more interesting if there is a 400-point Archaon running around. Like a Gotrek kind of equivalent.
That's interesting.
So Dorgar was his horse. So
Yeah.
there's definitely not going to be a horse-based one, because it's a big three-headed monster now.
Yeah, he couldn't have gone to like a son of Dorgar. But no, like I'd be totally... it'd be really weird to have the option be either like 800-point dragon monster or foot-slogging Archaon. They would have to do something else with them, I think. But like give him a disc or skateboard, I don't know.
Made of skulls.
Made of skulls.
Made of skulls.
Skullboard.
He knows.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, he doesn't have the other things. He doesn't have the Slanesh mount, because Dorgar's all the other things. So maybe...
So
chariot.
Archaon on Boob Snake.
Exactly. Fine. Sold. Speaking of snakes, this is a segue. Seraphim book.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So professional.
Thanks.
It's Seraphim, the first AOS book to come out. What is that right?
One of the three first.
I think
it's
it was
the exact
Stormcast,
order.
Fire Slayers.
Stormcast, Khorne, Bloodbound, and then Seraphim.
Yeah, and then the
Maybe.
Fire Slayers were the first new range that wasn't
Right.
those two.
Yes.
Wasn't the core box two.
Yeah.
So they were super early, and therefore until now they've lacked leads, abilities, and loads of the extra stuff that modern books have.
They're super janky, basically.
Right. And does this mean that we're going to get some new models? No, don't think so.
I'm shaking my head.
Yeah.
For the radio.
They're getting terrain. They're getting the ziggurat.
Yeah, it looks massive.
Can't be bigger than the Ossiarch Bone Reapers.
That's true.
Weirdly, seeing that in person, the Bone Tithe Nexus, I thought it was smaller than I thought it would be.
The White
I was
House.
slightly disappointed. I wanted it to be like, Nagash-sized tall, but it's sort of not quite there.
That's thank God. But yeah, so they're getting a ziggurat. Cool. It feels like something like endless spells. I didn't feel like it was completely exhaustive. I wouldn't be surprised if they got endless spells because they revealed like the Tzeentch stuff and didn't reveal the endless spells till later.
Yeah, it's true.
What the endless spells could be?
Aren't
Shitloads of snakes.
the Seraphim just like one giant endless spell?
So one of the interesting things they described is they sort of talk about like the journey of them from, their humble origins to them being space police, which is what they are now, to this other kind of entity that they're becoming.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they're going to do a big, because they've been kind of going back slightly on there. They're actually all dreams.
They're all memories.
They're a dinosaur's dream.
Yeah.
Frog's dream.
A frog's dream of a dinosaur policeman.
The word they introduced in the LVO preview article was the coalesced, I think they call it, which suggests some sort of unifying consciousness of some kind.
Right, so I wonder if they might use that to kind of say, like, your army could be coalesced, which is the kind of dream, ghost, time dinosaur thing, or they could just be some dinosaurs.
They could just
like,
be some dinos.
to give that range.
They still fighting Corvus columnist Doom Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay. I want more lore around that moon. Give me moon stories.
I think pointedly, though, this is the year of cats with human faces.
Yeah,
The age of the moon is behind us.
Yeah.
The age of moon with human face is behind us.
Yeah, it's
We're
cat face now.
It's now cat face. I think... No, death and destruction don't have cat face people yet. Although kind of death.
Well, don't give people the hope of Tomb Kings again.
No, yeah,
No,
exactly.
it's true.
Necrosphinx was the original
Cat-faced
human
monster.
human-faced cat monster.
Yes. With wings.
I saw a picture of a goat with a human face this week. It was in the news. Did you guys see it?
No.
Well, it's get worshipped as a god. And then a few days later I tune in to Warhammer Community and realise that turns out to be the future direction for all of AOS.
Exactly.
That one goat with a human face.
Yeah, we could move on from goats to zotes if you like.
Yeah, fantastic. Or one zote, only one zote.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's very good.
I don't think there's much to say about Blackstone Fortress's Lonely Zote, which is essentially a lizard centaur with a gun.
I love that Blackstone Fortress is just a kind of refuge for every nonsense idea that some monster designers had once in Games Workshop's history. That's a great place to put them all.
Yeah, it's a zote.
Is it
Perfectly flat psychic bear next.
Oh, yeah.
We can dream.
We can dream. I love the idea that I think those models have ever been made, but I love the idea that was like a concept artist just handing like an easy Friday to the model design team.
Yeah, right.
They just roll out some green stuff.
Yes.
Flat.
Yeah.
Jobs are good and
Draw a bear face.
draw a bear on it. So is there anything I want to say about Seraphim? Like, I'm really excited to see what happens when they become I think there are two order factions that I would do if I ever wanted to do like 1,000 points for order doubles or something. And Seraphim are one of them, just because I love the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been I played against them a bunch, and it's always been Jank City, Wizard
they're
Town.
Incredible bullshit army.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sort of expecting like a different army, basically.
Yeah.
Just a straight up like it's different now.
Yeah.
Because traditionally, Games Workshop have been sort of reticent to do any grand scale rewriting of the original printed War Scrolls. But the last KO book, they basically just said, ignore the last one, we'll try again.
Done it again. Yeah.
All new, all different. So maybe there's a bit more, they're feeling like they can do some wilder changes, especially now it's 4 years old.
I remember
right.
how, Slan used to just be like a turret that would sit in the corner of the board and just nuke stuff with mortal wounds. And, let's just have something a bit more fun than that, perhaps, for the other player.
Or infinite summon batteries to spew forth skinks across the table.
Yeah, Skinks are pretty good. Skinks are still pretty good battle line, aren't they? Really cheap. Add into an order army.
Basically,
easy to screen.
All modern Seraphim armies just seem to be one slam and 8,000 skinks.
Poor Saurus. I like the Saurus.
Poor Saurus.
Yeah.
Models.
They do need new models. I don't think they're that bad, but
Yeah.
Saurus.
Campaign for 2 wounds Saurus, please. An orc
those
with 2
wounds?
wounds, a Saurus should be 2 wounds.
It should definitely be 2 wounds.
Yeah, that seems likely to me with like most dwarves go into 2 runes.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, right.
Because
Swords on bigger bases as well, aren't they?
I don't know.
I don't know, maybe
32s?
probably.
32 is Stormcast base, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
or a
Okay,
pink
no,
horror.
they're 40s.
No, Stormcast on 40s. Yeah,
You should know this.
I should.
Kyro Acolytes and pink horrors on 32s.
I see. Yeah, okay.
In Zangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing I wanted to point out, so the other thing they revealed was the new Nurgle Underworld's warband
Oh, yes.
with the rad-looking sorcerer, but also who has a wretchling, which is a cat with a human face.
Happening.
I thought that was going to be the segue you went for.
Yeah, no. Well, it's the opposite of a segue is. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that little guy.
They're nice.
Thumbs up.
So
Yeah, exactly.
Nurgle.
I'm excited for the Mind Stealer Spheranx to come out. I think that's going to be real dumb.
Apparently it's big.
Yeah, it's big. Like you can't underestimate because it's a 10-wound monster. So you know, I think it's on one of the big cavalry bases. So yeah,
It's exciting.
and the Fomeroid Crusher is also out too. It sounds like something you'd buy in Boots.
So the Nurgle, the Nurgle warband.
Yeah,
How many 3 model warbands are there? Is there like 3?
there's a couple now. There's all of the Stormcast
Yeah.
ones are 3
Oh,
models.
yes,
There's
of course,
4 of them.
There's the troll armies. Just
That's
the troll
4
ones.
models. 4
There's
models.
Yeah.
There's the Magor's Friends is 4.
Yeah, because they've got the doggo.
Yeah.
I think it's just the Stormcast ones.
Yeah, not many. This is interesting.
Oh, and the wolves. The wolf
yeah,
riders.
yeah. Wolf Riders, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, the goblins.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think it kind of makes sense. I mean, like 2 kind of Blight Kings and
Yeah.
Sorcerer.
Super tough and regenerating and whatever.
Yeah. Cool. I'd like to play more Beastgrave. I haven't played for ages.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss Warhammer Underworlds. The video game is in kind of beta phase at the moment. It's not coming out in a few months.
Oh, cool.
In early access. So,
Awesome. Oh yeah, and there's loads of Warcry factions coming out. We're going for pre-order this weekend
yeah.
actually, which is rad.
That's the game I want to play the most at the moment. Warcry. Yeah.
Come and play Warcry because it's great.
It's good stuff.
But yeah, interestingly, both Zinch Mortals and Zinch Demons are separate Warcry warbands, which
Oh,
I
cool.
wasn't expecting because I don't think there's any other demon kind of presence.
No,
Yep.
no, it's true. Okay.
So yeah, I think that's more or less it for the news.
Plenty of it.
We could talk about what we've been up to this month. Chip, because you're the guest, do you want to start with what you've done? Not including Brotherhood, because we'll get to that, but
Yeah.
otherwise
Hobby-wise.
hobby or
Hobby.
playing or interacting with miniatures.
Interacting with miniatures. I mean, basically since October, I've been desperately slopping contrast paints onto rats. Having gone from no
Practicing
scaling
for painting your Skaven.
to so many scaling.
They hate it.
It's one way to get rid of the local wildlife. Is to just cover them in paint until they run. But so it's mostly been painting rats until I was rudely interrupted by an FAQ telling me to stop painting Stormfiends now. You've painted enough.
What do they go up in points?
They changed the max unit size.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So the incredible bullshit army I was wanting to use was smaller
How
than
many
I
did you
originally
take?
intended. 6. I wanted 9.
Plenty.
Tom. I wanted 9.
Okay.
I own 9 for that reason.
Yeah.
How do you? Because how many models are in that army? Because it looks like a lot.
Plenty.
It is 120 odd. Yeah.
And you've done that since October.
Yeah.
Man, that's insane.
How do you feel?
With a break for Christmas. I feel great now that I'm not painting rats anymore.
Right.
Contrast is really good, and it's really good for that project. And I'd never have painted that army without contrast existing, because I can just put I can pick up 40 plague monks, and I can say, now I'm doing all of the robes, and I do all of the robes, and it takes me an evening.
Yeah.
Instead of 2 weeks. But there's no joy in it, is what I found. There's none. There's sort of none of the sort of flair or personality you can put into a traditional paint job. So I feel like I never want to do that again.
Right.
Contrast a whole army. I'd use contrast as a tool, as you do with your Slaves to Darkness.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, because I love contrast a bit. It's like I'm using it a lot now. I just got back to painting Zinch, and it's amazing for that. Like it makes things that used to be hard really easy, and I decided rather than be better about it, just to kind of embrace it. I get what you mean, because you're not like doing anything on top of the contrast, right? The idea is get to this finish line, so you're not
Yeah.
you're not doing an extra dry brush over the top. It's just the robes are now done and they are this green.
Yeah, so it definitely was a tabletop standard job. I mean, I could go back and do some highlights on the Storm Fiends and they'd probably look 100% better, but I just didn't have time.
Yeah.
The most fun thing to paint in that army was the Hell Pit Abomination.
Oh man, yeah, because it's just a skin boy.
It is a sack of rats with some...
It's such a disgusting model.
It's so disgusting. When you're gluing like the 10th head on, you're like, oh, this is truly disgusting. But that's fun because you can slop over Guilliman flesh and a bit of Darko flesh, and then you can go in with washes, and that's a bit more entertaining. But yeah, no, just sort of rote painting rats has been my hobby. I'm looking forward to not doing that anymore.
Was there anything that you found helped that go faster? Or was it just...
So, doing enormous batches
Yeah.
is how I got through it. So I did all the Plague Monks in one go, so that's 40, and I did all the Clan Rats in one go, which is 60. And I just sat down and would spend an evening just doing one thing, like, here's all the skin on my 60 Clan Rats. And I'd hate myself by the end of the evening, but it would be done. And it's just working through it that way. I think if I tried to do small batches, or tried to finish like 10 at a time, it would never have happened.
Right. That's interesting. Because I have actually I've just made my batch size smaller. I used to do batches of like whatever the unit size is.
Yeah.
And I've moved to doing 5 as an upper limit. And actually I found that a little bit better for my pace. Because... well, actually, the new thing for me has been paint one thing from the unit, start to finish, partly test model, particularly now that contrast, like, you don't want to kind of commit and then realise you approached it wrong. But do one thing, and try and do like one of the fiddlier models, so like the unit champion or something like that, and do that one by itself, and then break everything else down into groups of 5, and I found that a little bit better, but I think the only reason that's working is because contrast speeds up the boring stages so much, because when I was doing like 30 Zangor, I knew I would never finish that if I didn't do all of the skin in one go, because you never, like, if you've had the it's like, I don't know, it's like, if you've had the satisfaction of finishing it, but it took you 6 hours or something, you never want to go through back to stage 1 of 15.
Yeah, you never go back to a model that's quote unquote finished. I don't think you ever go back to it.
No, I don't think you do either, unless, no, I don't think so. Like, I had this, mad moment recently. I've had some real revelations this month because I went back to, so I painted a bunch of Slaves to Darkness towards the end of December, and then started this month, so I did like a Demon Prince and a Sorcerer Lord and then a Knight. The Knight was amazing to do simply because it's a character that's on a horse with a cape and a big shield that obscures some of its body, and I just made myself not do sub-assemblies. Like, just not going to do sub-assemblies. I Zenithal sprayed it, but like, and it took a while to get all the metallics in and stuff. And I hated myself, like, so much. Like, I didn't, because it's a push fit model, didn't glue the shield on, but I was like, just leave it. See what you can get away with. And that was actually a really useful exercise in the end, because it showed that you can't tell.
No.
It turns out no one is, and we've said this before, no one is going to get like a mag light out and stare at its crotch.
Yeah, it's not the Golden
Like, and if they do, that's a memorable tournament moment.
That's a story right there.
That's my Doom Knight. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So that was again done. But then, because I think so, Tom. I think you have had the experience of this swathe of announcements from a high elf point of view, basically dooming you for some point in the future, Warhammer wise.
Especially because again, it's having that big order collection. So I've got a few I didn't Deepkin. I could just ally them into a little high elf force, and maybe run some Stormcast with them, and just have a good time just playing some narrative stuff.
Just a good elf time.
Just a good elf time. I can't see myself buying Teclis or anything like that, but I just like that idea of having some nice big units of spearmen and, put them in ranks and charge them across the board. That's
exactly.
Also, perfectly ordinary horses. They're back. They're back in the road. Chaos and the High Elves have been holding on to them all this time.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they live. The reason I point that out, though, is because that's the one I've just had, where it's something like Slaves to Darkness book into Tzeentch Battle Tome.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I realised that I'm not... I picked up Ether War, which is the Tzeentch Battle box, partly because it's just a really cost-efficient way of getting the Enlightened kit. Like, I was probably never going to do Enlightened on foot without them being like heavily discounted, because you're paying quite a lot for 3 models.
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to assemble them in their disc form, what are you doing?
So what do you do with those spare discs? Are they just...
Well, so I think you're never going to not want a disc with Zinch. Like, there's a lot of heroes, like... Because it would be things for, like... I don't know what I would do with them. Maybe end up using for them Thousand Suns.
Pogs.
Objective tokens. You know, you could do things like, if you wanted to kit bash, like, another Magistron disc that didn't match the other one. Then...
Slightly less janky-looking Fate Master, or whatever they're called.
Right, well, I did do my Fate Master this month, so that's the thing I have actually done now. But I realised that I was in striking distance of actually finishing Zinch, and that is what I decided I was just going to take a stab at and just add Zinch stuff to the rotation, because it's like, it would be really nice to have finished a project. I don't know what that's like. Like, and not just I finished the army I wanted for this event, but like, Zinch collection's done. I think it'll be about 5,500 points painted when it's done, and it's like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, just sign off on it. Like, there are things I don't have, like I don't have Blue Scribes, I don't have Kairos, but I don't need them, you know? Like...
Do you not need Kairos?
I don't want Kairos a bit. Don't want to pay another load of change. So, we'll see. But yeah, so I did the Mutalith Vortex Beast, and that was very similar to the experience you had with the Hell Pit, I think. Like, really nice, just contrast blending real well, Cosmic Horror Space Monster, who is very bad.
That is so bad.
Funny though.
So, later in this episode, you're going to get a battle report from a game that Tom and I played with the New Zinch book a couple of days ago now, where the Mutalith Vortex Beast features, so I don't want to spoil too much, but...
It did great.
It is trying. Bless it. It turns out being a huge dog, cosmic horror dog monster with no face doesn't leave you many options for how you contribute to a war. I just finished painting 10 Character Acolytes, so it's all my Character Acolytes done now, which is nice, because they're good now, which is nice. And I converted and painted a Fate Master, which is the Zinch. It's basically what became of the Chaos Lord on disc. So it's a melee hero who now has a war scroll that makes sense, which is nice, and a command ability that makes sense, rather than the old command ability, which was just dumb as hell.
What was the old one?
The old one was, you roll a dice, and whenever your opponent rolls whatever number you rolled, I think it's either to affect the Fate Master or in a radius around the Fate Master, you can force them to re-roll it. So it's good if you roll a 6.
Right.
Like, you have to re-roll all 6s near this bubble. It's great for them if you roll a 1. And so, like, there was this idea in the old Zinch book, and maybe this is like, oh, fate, it's mysterious, it's capricious, what's it going to do? But there's a little bit of, like, just sort of ASCII shrug about that. Like, why would I ever use the sort of, how do you get the idea of fate or manipulating fate into the army without it being just like, ooh, maybe I'll get to reroll, maybe you'll get to reroll. I don't know.
It's reminiscent of a lot of the way they've written the Clan Scryer War Scrolls, where they say, ooh, you could get this buff to do more damage, but if you roll a 1, you blow up. And it's like, well, I won't ever do that.
Everything's a plasma gun when you're Clan Scryer. But from, like, so I think the main thing I've had from painting this month, apart from smaller batches, has been that all of my Zinch colour schemes are way easier to do with contrast, just like way easier to do. And like, which is really nice. But I had this realization that, like, even things I hadn't expected, like Hexwraith Flame, the green Nighthaunt paint that came out ages ago, I refused to buy at the time, because I was like, well, I'm doing green fire on this entire army, but I'm not buying this paint called green fire. And it turns out, it's exactly the same as the shade of green I was getting, which was like a 3-step process. And it's like a lot of, like, I don't feel like I've wasted my life. I want to stress that. I want to stress that. But there has been this feeling of like, oh shit, I can do this real quickly now. Like, this afternoon, after work, before you guys came around, I started painting a Gaunt Summoner on disc. And it's like going so quickly, because it's just, he's riding this flesh disc, which is horrible. Actually, it's the grimmest disc. I'm now a connoisseur of AOS's grimmest discs, and it is the grossest one. Partly because it's reaching up and holding him by his arse, up through his skirt, up his skirt. It's he's spicy. It's a spicy one. But yeah, like before, we could talk about some of the new book themes in general. But Tom, how's your hobby month gone?
All I've done is spill a pot of contrast on the table.
Cool.
Which I did earlier today. Poo brown.
Poo brown? I didn't know that was a colour.
I can't remember what it's called. Some fancy
Wildwood.
but it looks like
Cygor brown.
an accident has happened. It might be Cygor, I think.
That's the fate of all painting
I
desks,
think
Yeah,
so.
even with the best of intentions.
It did get on the carpet, that's the main thing. I assembled some Sicarian Rust Stalkers, that was fun. And I've undercoated the rest of the unit of Vanguard, Skitario Vanguard. So I'm going to be John Blanching up the cloaks this weekend. That's going to be my fun project. Though it's kind of like a stage where I started doing a couple of them earlier, and then it like total shit until the model's basically done. Because I have to sort of undercoat a lot of the metal black before going over with silver and bronze and stuff like that. So they look nothing like they're going to be when they're finished. And I'm not going to know until the very last sort of coat of paint goes on whether they're going to look good or not. But basically, like, I'm resigned to the fact that if it's no good, I'll spend £15 and get another box. It's fine. Don't stress about it.
That's the right approach to the hobby, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's what Games Workshop want to hear.
That's
I
right,
imagine it is. I've definitely found that moving on to using contrast for everything, or using contrast as a base for everything, it does look crap until it's not crap. And like, it's interesting, like, the sort of span of experiences, because like, you're kind of getting them ready for the table thing. I understand the slight malaise of like, I've achieved this, but at what cost, sort of thing. Yeah. Like, yeah, an extremely like Nagash response to painting an army. Like, oh,
It's done now.
you've disappointed me, tiny men.
The worst part is the little flecks of white you get
from
the undercoat when you miss with your one thick coat.
Right, which is why you have to. Which is why they like contrast. Any contrast painted model benefits amazingly from like the second pass.
Right.
And some things it doesn't. Something which is either a second pass with the same color to like add some depth or something, or like extra highlights and things. I think my main realization, particularly doing this latest batch of Caracacolites, is like some things are just fine. Like particularly like the human skin tones, they're basically done on the first coat. You can do like fancier things with a highlight on them, but like highlighting skin is hard, and the payoff is not quite worth it. Whereas like if you highlight cloth, like particularly with like a brighter highlight than you think you would go for, like almost like skip the color you think is the logical highlight color and go to the next brightest one. So it looks amazing. Like the best cloth you've ever painted.
Amazing,
because it logs a wink, which I think we said before. But I found that doing the Fate Master, which, if I didn't have all of the bits, would have been the most expensive kit bash in the history of the kit bashes. Because it is a Kyracacolite shield, a Zangor weapon, a Cypher Lord Mirrorblade body, a Thousand Suns Exalted Sorcerer disc, and a Varangard head.
Blimey.
Which is, like, luckily, those are all kits that I have for different projects, and they've all got spare bits that can be kind of traded across. But I just realised looking at it, like, if someone on Instagram asked me, like, what are the bits? I was like, well, here's this £200 single 120-point hero you can build if you like. But yeah, but that was interesting because, like, I did all these blends on the skin and things, and then I was like, well, I'm going to have to spend another hour highlighting this, and I realised, I don't need to. You're done.
How have you been approaching the varnishing aspect then? Because that was the one thing that I knew I'd have to do, but I wasn't quite prepared for painting 120 rats and then doing it again, but with a sort of milky, terrifying experience. Have I just completely fucked this army up?
The milky, terrifying experience.
Is that the matte varnish then?
Storm Shield. So I don't use Storm Shield. I use Munitorum spray, Munitorum varnish spray, which works okay. You have to make sure it's warm and you shake the shit out of it, or else it can be a little bit cloudy. I haven't found it too bad. One thing I realised recently though is you do need to varnish if you're doing contrast, and that's it. So you did need to do them for the rats. But if you're painting over contrast, particularly if you're washing over contrast, I found that actually often you don't then need to.
Okay.
So like, because often I'm doing like a glaze or something over contrast, like Gilliman Blue or Nuln Oil or something. And I literally tested it with some acolytes that I hadn't varnished, just knocking them around. Like if they get chipped, I'll just repaint it quickly, and they're fine. So I think if you're going to do more work on it, I think it depends on the model. It depends what the the contact points are likely to be, and what you pick it up from. And like, for example, if you pick the model up from like using like the weapon and the shield, and both of those things are going to get an extra coat of like lead belcher or something after you've done contrast, then you don't need to varnish it because you're probably only ever going to be touching those parts of it. So yeah, I think it's only if you have that it's almost like a choice at that point. It's like you can varnish or you can do more work on the model, like some Agrex Earthshade or something.
Yeah.
Because that must have been a bit of a nightmare, right? To blob.
It was. I sort of started off doing it with a brush I didn't mind knackering, and then I went and got the biggest makeup brush I could and just globbed it on. And Storm Shield's a little terrifying because it looks very shiny when you put it on the model.
Right.
But it dries as matte as it ever looked. In fact, more matte than the finish on a usual GW paint.
Right.
So actually, yeah, it worked brilliantly in the end. But yeah, there was a moment of staring at a screaming bell, thinking, "Oh my god, you're very shiny."
God, there's some real low hanging fruit here that I'm just not going to reach for. Yeah, I found that it's useful for actually knocking back the shine because, like, I've kept doing varnishing on my Slaves to Darkness because I tend to do their capes with Black Templar followed by like a 50-50 mix of Basilicanum Grey and Contrast Medium, which for some reason is super glossy. Like, it just comes out real shiny, and the varnish is nice for knocking that back. But sometimes you can just imagine they're wearing PVC capes, and that's your mark of Slanesh, and you're done, basically.
There's always a law workaround.
Yeah, there is. Something I've been trying to do with the slaves, actually, is paint the rules onto the model. So anything that has a 5-up invulnerable save, which is like a standard thing across the army, but in different ways, has like glassy black armour on at some point, either the shield or...
You haven't just painted a 5+. Or
no, what I mean is like trying to represent it. So anything that has exploding wounds on a 6, which is a couple of things, has a weapon with like a particular effect on it. I'm just trying to do that. Like that's probably not going to be a thing until the army's actually done, in terms of usefulness, but I quite like the idea of being able to look at the army and go, that's where my invulnerable saves are, because they are holding the invulnerable save thing.
Yeah.
That is a useful thing to do, though, because one of the things I do when I was painting the Skaven, so I've got 60 clan rats, but it's 3 units of 20.
Yeah.
Is I just went, these 20 have yellow tunics, these ones have blue, and these ones have green. And it is so handy for being able to look at a table and go, those are the blues, those are the greens, those are the yellows, and picking them all out on the table.
Yeah.
Especially when you are, not that obviously I would ever do this, but stringing out huge lines of rats right across the table in the gamiest possible way.
I have done this. I tend to do this with, like, you change one. Like, I tried to do colour variation within units anyway, but like for my character acolytes, I just planned it so that I was doing 3 different skirt colours, and in the box of 20, I did 10 of one, 5 of one, 5 of one, so that now that I'm splitting this unit to 10, there's just the green kilt guys and the purple and blue kilt gang, which is how they divide themselves up, I imagine. But if I ever get another box, I'll expand them into like another 10 green ones, do a 20 of them, and then another 5 of each. And you can plan this stuff. And if you love planning things, I can recommend project management as a job, but also approaching like... Yeah.
It's good to get a practice in.
It is.
Your hobby time.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's work. Hobbies. So all of that rat painting...
Yes.
All of it was for a particular end.
Yes.
And that end has now happened, which is Brotherhood, which is in Firestorm in Cardiff, which is where Minnie's live was
Yes.
a while ago.
And also, I believe, Blackout, which you went to a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And you've been to a Blackout.
Yes.
Didn't we place exactly the same?
We placed exactly the same, yeah. Got to keep the role models...
lower third of the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Always place the same.
Yeah, so maybe to skip to the end of your Brotherhood report, where did you place? Was it lower third of the table?
Yes, definitely in the lower third. So we did indeed. We didn't come last. So that was sort of my secret goal for the weekend. Didn't let anyone...
Your hidden agenda.
Yes, exactly. I sort of didn't want to come last. That would be quite nice. And we achieved that. But definitely...
So what was it like? Because I think most people won't have done either a minis competitive event or even a team event, and you were coaching, which must be a... What? Can you tell me what coaching involves?
So it was... shall I, like, explain the format of the event? Because it's quite unusual. So it follows what has become like a traditional format for Team Warhammer, which sort of evolved out of the European team championships that have been going on for years and years. So Brotherhood was 6 people on the team, but not 6 people all playing on the same table. because that would be impossible.
Right.
So you have 6 players, and they each bring their own 2,000 point match play army, and you are matched up against another team, and then there's a process by which you decide who plays who on each team, and the process is basically playing Warhammer Yu-Gi-Oh!
Right.
So you have your little cards with your team members on, and it's really complicated to explain how it works, but it's really easy to do.
Right.
So I can go into it.
Maybe give an example of how it plays out.
Give an example. So you put 2 cards, or you put 1 card down, and your opponent puts 1 card down, and that's sort of best way to think of it is like attackers and defenders. So you put your card down, they put their card down, it's face down. Then you show them to each other, and you will choose then 2 cards from your hand to put against the one that they've put down.
Right.
And then from the 2 that you've put down, they will pick one of them, and that creates the matchup.
Do they pick it sight unseen or having seen it?
Having seen it.
Right.
So they will have the one, they know what their one's going to be, and then they pick one of the ones you give them for that matchup.
Right.
So you both have some influence over what that game is going to be, but not 100% control.
Right.
Right.
And then you flip reverse that, and you keep doing that until there's only one possible game left.
Right.
Brotherhood had the additional complication in that it also paired what scenario you were playing into that. So there were multiple levels of things to be thinking about at once.
Right, as in you'd also kind of play the scenario as a card, like preference or something like that?
So for each round, there were 3 scenarios. And so the first scenario would be played by the first 2 pairings.
Right.
And then so on and so forth.
I see.
So you had to think, so you knew what they were going to be, and you knew what order they were going to be. So that also influenced, because not every army likes playing every scenario.
Right.
So you have to think of that as well.
That sounds like a lot.
It was weird. So I didn't say this in the group chat beforehand, but I was bricking it before going in, just because it seemed like the most impossible thing to do in the world. And then we got there, and it was great.
Oh, cool.
It's really fun. It was like just playing a weird Warhammer card game before you're...
But where your friends are the cards.
Yes. So there is a weird amount of responsibility to it because you are organising someone else's fun. So there were some moments, I think generally, whenever I ended up pairing Discord user Rogue Michael into an Iron Jaws match, I would then look around and sort of grimace at him as he put on the bravest possible face he could.
Oh no.
But yeah, it was an interesting one. So Chris Tomlin, who ran the event, he sort of initially set out saying you have a team captain and the captains do the pairs, and then what he later added was a coach position, which Discord user Crunchy Nutter he did for our team after he was sort of pushed into it by no one else offering to help. But yeah, it's just feels very strange having that level of responsibility for someone else's game, but it also feels very good.
But also the power is nice.
The power is nice, yes.
Yeah, interesting. So, to what extent in that do you consider, like, I guess you're going for favourable matchups, but so do you see the lists or do you see the faction?
So,
I presume you see the lists.
Yeah, so you submitted the lists in advance of the tournament, and then they were all published. So we had a massive spreadsheet big spreadsheet where everybody went through every army, and then to the best of their ability, because obviously we're all at various levels of knowing what anything in Warhammer does.
Yeah.
And we all, to the best of our ability, sort of gave a quick... We used green, yellow, red for good and bad matchups. And we all sort of went through and said, this is what I think this is. And so that's the information then that me and Crunchy would then go and sit down and try and work out the most favourable possible matchups for the team. And we spent a very long time doing that. And then in the end, mostly what we did was looked at what's the best scenario. As I think that was the most important thing really to look at, because at the end of the day, I can think, yeah, I'm really good against Bone Daddies, but I don't know that. I've never played that game. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? Because it's sort of theorycraft can be such a trap, like such a trap, because and it's like the actual game itself. Doesn't matter how much damage you can hypothetically do.
Yeah.
What matters is how many dice did you roll, and did you remember to move close enough to the objective?
Yes, that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's. Did you? So I don't know how you want to break down the experience beyond that, but like, how did your own games go?
My games, they went pretty well. So in the end, this has ended up being my best placing at a tournament. It's probably a combination of one, I could match myself into who I wanted.
I was going to ask, like, what role did that play?
There was an element of that at Flynn Play, obviously.
Yeah. Spot the Skaven captain.
Yeah. And the other part of it is I took definitely the gamiest list of anyone in team role models.
Yeah, as in the most sort of fun ruining.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh absolutely. Yeah. There were some people who did not enjoy their experience of Storm Fiends. Yes, they went really well and played against some stuff that I wasn't expecting. I mean, I can just run through some fun highlights if you want. So let's go for it. So I played against the Stormcast Eternals army.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, with a unit of 20 Judicators.
Why?
20 Judicators.
Make me sad.
And one big unit as well.
One big unit of 20 Judicators and 4 Ballistas. So what
Tom's done a face.
Tom's doing
So why would you do that?
So there's a Stormcast Eternal subfaction that lets you pay a command point to shoot one unit in your army. So
to shoot with it, rather than just like
to shoot
in the back of the
head.
Someone gets worse by the second.
So he gets to shoot the Judicators twice.
So the hero phase and then shooting phase.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But he only gets once a game.
No, every turn.
Oh, that's quite good then. Potentially.
Yeah. So that was his gimmick.
Okay.
But then Storm Fiends do what Storm Fiends do, which is shoot better than the entire Stormcast Eternals army.
There's so much rend in the Storm Fiend as well. Like Stormcast just hate that.
Yes.
It's like rend 3, rend 2, damage D3 levels.
Yeah. So 11 Judicators died in his first turn.
Oh my god.
Which was
no spoilers to this battle report, but that's more than I killed in a game.
it's more than he put on the table. To be fair,
that is fair.
That's a good point, right?
Yeah.
That's how that went. I think with the less we talk, at least also he was playing Stormcast Eternals, and his team had paired him specifically into the Total Commitment battle plan. Which, if you don't know, Total Commitment's a battle plan where every unit has to start on the board.
No! So he can't use the Scions of the Storm.
So you cannot use Scions of the Storm.
So he couldn't just drop his archers into a cool place.
No, he had to deploy them on the table.
Good job, captain of
so
the team.
He did not have an enjoyable interactive experience, I think. But to be fair to him, he wasn't going to offer anyone else an enjoyable interactive experience either. He was doing the same thing. So I didn't feel too bad.
Yeah.
I didn't feel too bad.
You live by the bullshit, you die by the bullshit.
Yeah. Round one was really good because we were against a London team. Team Fact, I think they were called. And they were bringing Old Book Zinch, what was the Change Host?
Old Change Host.
They were doing Old Change Host.
What was your round time?
Round time? So the round time was 3 hours. So
that's
I should
not
say,
enough.
on the Saturday, we turned up at 8:30 and we left at about 8:30.
Right.
So it's a long day.
Gosh.
But so we paired Discord user Le Swordfish, our Corn player, into that, and he heroically won that game.
Fantastic.
He beats old bullshit, old book.
It's that classic Khorne versus Zinch match as well.
Yes.
Zinch nonsense versus Axis to the face.
Yes. You gotta love it. So then probably our stupidest round was so we lost the first round really narrowly. It was like a 10-point difference. It just came down to hidden agenda points.
Right.
So it was like they got a few more hidden agendas than us, so they won the round. It was like 55-65. So I was really close. They were a pretty good team. I think they finished like 9th or something. So I was really happy with everyone then. That was like the best they could possibly. That was better than I was expecting the weekend to go in the first round, so I was super happy. And then we got paired into them again by the Swiss.
That shouldn't happen, right?
It shouldn't happen. So over it's a Discord user Scops. She runs over to Chris Tomlin and says, "Oh, I think you've paired us into the wrong team here. We've already played them." And he says, "Okay, we'll fix that for you." And he pairs us into the Facehammer team. So if people who don't know, Facehammer is a podcast of people who are very good at Warhammer. Most of them were the Team England ETC
Right.
AOS team. Mm-hmm. So we paired into them. Chris Tomlin then walks past our table later and I say, "You have done us the dirtiest here." And he gave me just the most sheepish face a man has ever given someone else and apologised. So we went into this round sort of knowing we were going to get destroyed, which is, I put the bravest face on it I could. And then, we got destroyed. We got 5 points out of that round between everyone.
Wow.
So my army lost. It was my loss for the weekend. I played against Khorne, and I did 13 wounds to Scarbrand with shooting.
He's got 14 wounds.
Yes.
Oh.
And he gets better as he loses health.
He does.
Yeah, that's a bad number of wounds to do to Scarbrand, but a good number for rats.
Yes, it's a good rat number until he then does 38 mortal wounds to your unit of Stormfiends and then tables me.
Oh, no.
That's exactly the wrong number of wounds to do to Scarbrand.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the perfect storm. He admitted after the game that he was not looking forward to it. He thought he was going to get smashed.
Yeah.
And so I think he had the time of his life. We were both howling with laughter at the stupidity of the scenario that was unfolding.
Oh, man.
So that was good fun.
I had the experience of doing exactly 13 wounds to Scarbrand at the AOS doubles at the London GT.
Oh, no.
Ouch.
Before it killed everything.
Yeah.
And then was killed by the Vampire Queen on the Coven Throne biting him.
Nice.
Which is the best death for
That's a good
Scarbrand's sake.
Yeah.
Dead, gone.
Yeah, I unfortunately did not get my revenge on Scarbrand there. He just sat in a corner.
Oh, well.
Let the other bloodthirsters do the work for him. Yeah. But yeah, that was a silly round. I think the nicest part of that round was that they treated us seriously. Because obviously we're nobodies, and going into Brotherhood there was a lot of build-up on the internet, bants. Shall we say?
It can be dangerous.
It can be dangerous, because obviously the AOS competitive scene is relatively small.
Yeah.
So it is also relatively insular. And we were sort of apart from that. We did a few tweets and stuff, but it was nice, sitting down opposite their captain, who's this ridiculously experienced international player of Team AOS, and he seemed like he was giving us the same amount of respect he would give anyone.
That's nice. Yeah.
Which was nice.
Yeah,
Not necessarily what you would expect in that situation.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the fear a lot of people have about partly about Warhammer generally,
Yes.
I think, and then about competitive Warhammer particularly, is that you're going to bring out your list that happens to be your favourite models, or the models you have painted, or the army you have, and you get the kind of like the sniggering from the other side of the table because it's not optimised, or you would never take that weapon load out, or whatever.
I think like the more experienced, like the Facehammer guys are famously experienced, and so they're going to know about tournament etiquette and how to make it a nice game for your opponent until they do 38 also so that's the game, isn't it?
It's interesting because I've never experienced that kind of. I think I agree with you. The AOS competitive scene is insular, but in the tournaments that I've done, I've never experienced the sort of like sneering at your list stuff that I worry about from. Well, to be candid, that I worry about in 40k. To be honest,
Sure.
And I think that's interesting because in other competitive settings, specifically in competitive video games, which is where a lot of my experience with this came from, I started to believe in something called the bell end curve, which is the behavior on a behavior and skill are on have a weird bell curve relationship with each other, where the worst behavior is not the best players; it's players who are in the middle. New players and people who are just crap and know it have fun and have a nice time and don't think too much of themselves. And players who are good and know it are lovely because they're good and they know it. Like I had this weird experience of hanging out with esports professionals who are the best in their particular field, and there's so much less ego than people you meet online in like high level ranked play, where suddenly because they think they're better than they are, that's where all of the sort of point proving and sort of like jockeying for some kind of status by saying like actually your list's shit, why have you done that, like all of this stuff, that's where that comes in, and it's at the middle of the bell end curve, not at either end of it. But I've never found that I would describe myself accurately as a bottom third AOS player. But even like when I've won a round and accidentally been near the top tables for one round, I've never experienced any part of the Swiss. I've never had this is the area where it gets kind of sweaty. Where I have experienced that in X-Wing, for example.
Okay, that's interesting. When Jip and I did doubles, we got to the top tables briefly.
Yes.
Like Icarus. Like Icarus. Getting too close to those Zeech lists with lots of horrors in long lines. But we had a lovely game against people on those top tables as well. In fact, all the games we had lovely apart from one.
Yeah, that's nice. I hope it never gets that way for AOS. Obviously I feel like I experienced that with X-Wing really pointedly, like as that game matured and maybe, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the game getting bigger or me getting better at it.
Yeah.
But like I remember the tournament that made me quit playing seriously was the UK Nationals, because it was a big Swiss, but I think I went like 5-4 or something. Like I was slightly above average over the course of the weekend. I took a fun list and I was pleased with it. But I had this weird thing where I would win one, lose one, win one, lose one for the entire tournament. And I won my first one, and I had this weird like hot water, cold water experience of my games being alternatingly lovely. And every game I lost was against someone who was kind of being super competitive and a bit of a dick the entire time. And every game I won was against someone lovely that I didn't want to beat. And so it was actually a really negative experience, because this experience of like, this game has been really rules lawyery and kind of pedantic, and I've lost.
Right.
And then, someone with a fun list, trying to have a great time, and then it's like, then I have to watch them be sad. There's no good, like that kind of vibrating in the middle of the Swiss can suck for various reasons. But but anyway, I'm glad to hear that that's not apparently the case yet in AOS.
I think so Dinez, sort of another team member of ours, thought that his opponent in that round was the person who's playing with is sort of known for having a bit of a game face, whereas he just sort of plays his game and you're a person opposite him. He doesn't give you a lot of interaction necessarily. Yeah. Which I sort of knew that in my head going in because I've heard it on podcasts or whatever. But Dinez had no idea he was going to that, and I probably should have forewarned him, really. Knowing that now, when you're in the moment, you're rushing around giving people hidden agendas and saying you're on that table, have a drink of water. Have you eaten? So the best thing about this round was their coach was also their water boy, and he came running around and he gave them all a bottle of water.
Nice. That's good coaching.
You've got to keep the main tip for AOS tournaments is keep hydrated. Don't do what I did at LGT and drink lots of beer and then have a massive headache.
My tip for Warhammer tournaments is do drink lots of beer, but always buy one for your opponent as well if they want one. That's a good statement of intent, particularly if you're me at LGT and you are in the process of setting up a change host. It's a good way to rebalance the social dynamic. It's like, I am congolining 40 blue horrors. Here's a beer. And it cost me £6.
I've definitely had games of Age of Sigmar where the other person, each of our movement phases was the time the other person got to go to the toilet. But yeah, I mean that was that round was what we expected. We got 5 points out of it, mostly through poor Rogue Michael's terrible Stormcast army. Facing off against Nagash again. After his monthly weekend experience of facing off against Nagash.
Whose fault was it then?
Mine. Well, technically yours.
Technically, it was mine. Yeah,
It's true.
No, but because I remember this really vividly because we had the kind of coach or the setting up people's fun experience
Yes.
for that massive game, and I remember being like having that conversation of like, who's okay with going up against Nagash? Weary hand raise.
But yeah, so he had that experience again, and he had an incredible round where he knew he'd lost the scenario mathematically almost immediately, and entered this psychological space where he was just playing for hidden agendas. Which I have to say, if you haven't played Age of Sigmar with hidden agendas, it's really good.
All right.
Adds quite a lot, especially for if you sort of know you've lost, it gives you something to play for. So he entered this ridiculous dance with 6 evocators on Dracolines on the absolute backboard edge, sat cowering in a corner, surrounded by ghosts, desperately trying to kill them. And his whole game was just rolling saves for these evocators and praying they didn't fail a battle shock test. Whilst the guy opposite him was like desperately trying to kill them with as many ghosts as he could get in. Which was a very silly dance that they got into that took basically the whole round.
Who?
The evocators managed to do it. They managed to survive. So he scraped his 2 points out of that round, which is nice. Which was most of the points anyone got on our team for that round. So, but, that's doing your work.
Good job, cats.
Good job, yes.
If they had human faces, maybe they'd be competitive.
That's so bad. So then, it's interesting what you said about the bell end curve. As we go into the next round.
Oh, it's a spicy take.
I think so. I think this was them. Yeah, so this was a weird round. So we played against Legio 9, who I think everyone had a really good time against. Apart from their coach, who sort of gave us some odd experiences. So we had Dinners again, had finished his game, and then their coach came over and started rules questioning the game that was already finished and trying to argue that he had in fact not won the game, but his player had won the game due to his reading of the rules, which is one, not how coaching's supposed to work at Brotherhood, and two, just like a really
It's a very difficult
move.
It's a difficult social situation to put someone else in,
Yeah,
right?
really.
Because you can't really legislate a game that's finished. Because presumably their player had accepted the result.
Yeah, so the guy Dinners had played against was perfectly happy with that's how the rule was. So that was a very awkward situation, but Dinners did successfully argue that shut up and go away.
Strong argument.
But this was a fun one for me because I got to play against Hallow Heart, the famous Cities of Sigmar stupid allegiance,
The wizard town.
the wizard.
Oh,
town.
cool.
Yeah, it's the one that can get plus 8 billion to casts every single spell. So that's a fun game. Terrible scenario for him. Long deployment.
Lots of shooting on your side.
Yeah, lots of shooting on my side. So, yeah, that's how that went. Shot basically everything he had off, and he put a purple sun into the entirety of, like, I had this castle of storm fiends and rats and stuff, and he drops a purple sun in the middle of it and rolls not a single 6.
Nah,
Man after my own heart.
You've got to love it.
Lots of wizards can't roll a 6.
So that was that. That's not particularly interesting. That round was just a weird one, and we perfectly drew it.
Oh,
It was a
wow.
perfect 60-60 draw on each side. So that was quite nice. Because that was a nice one, because we'd gone up relatively, we sort of stayed middling from our first round drawish loss. Then we got smashed.
Yeah.
So then with a draw again, we're staying quite low, which is a nice level to be at, like you said, because you're with all the nice
Yeah.
people. So then we had our first and only round win after that. Round 4. Round 4, we won a round. It was very nice. Got to play against Gloomspike Gits, who I've never played
What
against
flavour
before.
of Gits?
Flavour of Gits is 60 stabbers. 60 stabbers. Scragrot, their little special character.
The Loon King.
The Loon King. He's tiny.
Yeah, he's a goblin.
He's a tiny little man. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was expecting. But he's a little goblin, which is nice. And he had the big Mangler Squig, the cool one.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
great
the
model.
Squig Knights. The ones with the lancers and stuff. So they're really...
What did you do to them?
I shot them with storm fiends. This was a great one because this is the one where the Hell Pit Abomination did something.
Oh.
So the Hell Pit Abomination has a rule whereby instead of using the normal attack sequence for one of its attacks, you roll a dice for every model within 3 inches, and it degrades. But when it's taken no damage, it's on a 2+ with a re-roll. You do a mortal wound.
Right.
So we went into 60 stabbers, and he killed 55 stabbers.
Because they're on tiny bases as well.
Tiny bases.
That is foot. So that 3-inch bug was massive.
It went absolutely... That was brilliant. I loved that. That was so much fun.
In your mind's eye, what did it do to them? Like, to kill 55?
Like, you know when like a dog sees like a piece of fox poo it really wants to roll in, and they like run and jump and do that barrel roll. Like that's what I'm imagining. Like the sort of like just rolling around, rolling back again, having a nice time.
Yeah. Oh, what a horrible way to die.
Yeah, it was a beautiful moment, really. That was one of my favourite moments, and when I sort of went, "Oh, Scragrot, how tough is he?" And my parents sort of put the bravest face on he possibly could, and said, "Oh, he's tougher than you think." No, he's not that tough. He dies to storm fiends. That was fun, and so that round we actually won, which was great. Big thumbs up to everyone. Woo. Go team role models. Then round 5, I'll be really quick because I know this is taking forever.
No, it's good.
Was brilliant rounds because I got to play Archeon.
Ooh.
The Grand Marshal of the End Times, the whatever his very many titles are.
Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse, Lord of the End Times.
Sorry.
You know.
So this is an interesting one. He was using the new Archeon War
Exalted High Marshal? Exalted Grand Marshal.
He's something.
He's a good big boy.
He's a large boy.
He is.
I have not seen that model before.
It is a big one.
It's very big one. So he was running them in Khorne.
Which makes sense. Was it Slaves to Darkness but predominantly Khorne? Or was
it was Khorne. So he had a Whippy Man.
Blood Sudoku.
Yeah, he had the Portal of Skulls.
Blood Secretor.
Yes. And he had the Bloodthirster of...
Big Axe.
Insensate Rage. The one that lets you pile in 6.
Big Axe one.
Yeah.
Insensate Rage.
Yes.
Wrath of Khorne is Whip. Yeah, it's Insensate Rage.
So the gimmick for his army was... He gives Archeon a 2+ re-rolling save via the prayer.
Yeah.
He then moves Archeon up. He auto-runs him 6 with a command point. And then if he finishes within 6 inches of one of your units, the Bloodthirster lets him pile in without needing to charge.
Right. Which gets around fight first.
Around fight first. It gets around having to roll dice to get in. Which is nice. So his plan... So I basically covered the entire length of the board in clan rats and then hid everything behind that in a little castle. All of my deployments are long screens of clan rats, tiny castle. And he puts Archeon in, and his plan is he has to kill all of the clan rats, and if he does that, he has enough blood tithe to, in my hero phase, run Archeon away. So the plan is kill my screen, run away again, out of range of my army, and then run back in again on his go. So
to clarify how that works for people who don't know how Khorne works, that's because you get a blood tithe point every time a unit dies.
Yes.
And one of the things you can spend blood tithe on is a move in your hero phase.
Yes.
So that would be what allows, which you can run doing because it's a move. So so that would, and he's a flying big boy, so.
He moves very fast.
He is. He's a fast boy.
So that was his plan.
Yeah.
So he has to kill 60 clan rats with, Archeon, high, grand, exalted marshal of
the apocalypse.
Yeah, he kills 57 clan rats.
That's brilliant.
And then he fell over. The Hell Pit Abomination did 10 damage to Archeon.
Archeon, wow.
A big sack of rats.
It doesn't do mortals, does it?
It did so...
Because he bounces mortals really easily, but he doesn't bounce regular damage quite as easily.
Yeah, so it does do the mortal thing, but he's only one model, so it's only one mortal wound. But what it does have, bizarrely, on its teeth attacks, is Rend 3.
Nice.
So his 2-up re-rolling is not quite as good there.
Yeah, right.
So he went down to that, and then he had 2 wounds left. I piled 40 Plague Monks into him. they rolled, I can't remember, it's like 90 dice, I think. I just about got them in my hands. He was helping me.
Yeah.
I was holding my hands out and he was putting dice in them. And I rolled my ridiculous number of Plague Monk attacks, which hit on 2s, they wound on 3s, and then he, after his 2-up rerolling 1 save, failed 2.
Yeah.
Went down to Plague Monks, and it was kind of all... That's all she wrote at that point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
His gimmick's kind of dead from there.
Mm.
So that was a sad time for Archeon. But
That one's not going in the annals of the vampire.
dragged down by rats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that was good. I think that was a good round for our team because the people we're playing against. I don't know if you know, like Mitzi and Jimbo, those people.
I've been on tables near them at games, and
Yes,
it's good rep.
you know from LGT, the very, very pretty Stormcast army.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
So people got to play against some very, very pretty looking armies, which is how you want to end the tournament,
nice.
Yeah,
really. Nice.
but that's the Raw guys, right, which just went on sale.
Yes.
It's the big narrative event every year, so yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that was good. Yeah. It was a good
Awesome.
time for everyone.
Was it a 5-round event, or was it?
It was a 5-round event. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
we came 18th
Nice.
of 22.
But it's nice to end on a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good fun. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Would you do it again?
I would do it again in a heartbeat. I think the team would do it again as well.
Yeah.
I think
Well, LGT next year is a team event, isn't it?
it is, yeah. I think there is already a role models team that's gotten together to go.
Is it 4?
It's 4 for LGT.
Yeah, because I'd be interested in maybe trying to go to LGT again this year now that it's teams again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's very similar to doubles that we did before. I think it's a really good intro event style because whilst Brotherhood ended up being billed as the most competitive AOS event that's ever happened, that we just sort of stumbled into. And I think half the team, it was their first ever event of wargaming, and for like Scops, it was her first ever AOS tournament.
Yeah.
Proper one. Despite that, everyone had a good time. People won games, apart from Rogue Michael. But you know, there's I think a level of camaraderie to it that is really good. Because having gone to Blackout last year on my own, it's, you know, everyone's nice and people hang out with you and treat you nicely, but they're still strangers, and then no one's really invested in you as a person or the games that you've had.
Right.
And it is...
No one wants to hear your dice stories.
No one wants to hear my dice stories, Chris. And it's just really nice to, you know, to have a big team house to go back to at the end of the day and to eat a big, disgusting takeaway. And everyone commiserate over their horrible, horrible beatings that they got.
Yeah, it's nice, because I used to go to X-Wing things as part of, the Bristol community, but also, specifically Bristol Vanguard, which was, the club. And it wouldn't be a team event, but there is something about being there with, your own gang, basically.
Yeah.
And you can't, in that scenario, you can't get matched against each other, which is a specific thing, but, you know, it's a nice feeling, because there are, you know, the endless sort of small anxieties of wargaming events, my round ended early. What do I do now? Having someone else's table to wander over and
It's really helpful.
you know, give them moral support or say hello or whatever. Or in the case of my friend Matt of Hipshammer at LGT, literally walked past my table, give me 2 new bags of dice, and keep moving because he had played doubles with me the day before, and
Did it work?
no.
Yeah, I think it's because it's a format that Games Workshop are doing more and more themselves. So I know last year they did 2 Warhammer World Team events. So it is a format that I would encourage people to do, especially if they're dipping a toe in, to see if they would enjoy the experience. So I think that's what a lot of people were treating it as a way to go I don't actually know if I'll enjoy playing competitive Warhammer.
Right.
Because, you know, there is a reasonable level of anxiety to, am I just going to have a bad time with horrible people?
Worst case scenario. Let's go have a bad time with horrible people.
Am I going to lose 5 boring games of Warhammer against people who aren't interested in me?
I just know you can lose 3 exciting games of Warhammer.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think, people generally, I think, had a really good time. We were the only team to have a woman at the whole event, with 120 players, which is not great.
Yeah. I do wonder how that... I don't... Yeah. It's a hobby-wide issue, but I do wonder how events can change to fix that. Teams seem like a good idea, though.
Yeah.
Not just for gender balance, just for balance in general.
Because, I don't think, nobody treated Scops any differently, or, I don't think she had a bad experience for being a woman at the event, but it was just very noticeable that she was the only person there.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And it's something that, I don't know how you fix that without it being an active decision by the community but I don't know how you do.
And it's a big subject, but it feeds into everything that could possibly be done to make the hobby more appealing, to open things up to, there's a lot of things that could be done there, but nonetheless, I think more accessible event formats is certainly a thing. And also just simply trying to keep the community as open and as uncliquey as it can be, I suppose.
Yes, and it is definitely very cliquey. Even when you're there, one thing that people on our team who didn't really know, the in-crowds of tournaments because they didn't listen to podcasts or whatever, they found it weird that people on other teams were talking to each other by their first names in a really casual way. Because they do all know each other and they are all mates.
Yeah.
It felt, some people did feel like an outsider being in there in the moment.
Yeah, I think that can be an experience of these events that you have to watch. You do watch other people's friendships kind of playing out, right? And that's fine, kind of there. And it can be hard to graduate to that point. And it takes, I think, a rare kind of person to actively kind of invite other people into those circles. And that's very important. It's something the community can be proactive at doing.
Yeah.
Is saying, actually inviting other people into the conversations that are happening at tables, rather than turning to talk to your mate who's just walked past and kind of shutting the other player out.
Right.
There's so much to this, because you always have to also assess, what is the level of social comfort with the person I'm playing against? Because some people, like I said earlier, the thing about, buy your opponent a beer if they want one.
Yeah.
Right? Showing up and giving them a beer is not a good idea because not everyone drinks and et cetera. Well, it's simple, but it's,
Yeah. But
also people have different levels of how much they want to get out of a game socially and different levels of comfort and so on. It's a negotiation and, hobbies and Warhammer specifically plays host to people with all sorts of different levels of comfort and anxiety when it comes to social situations. This is just a thing. And, but I think the rule is you have to be proactive in trying to find that right balance rather than just, making too many assumptions or doing nothing, which I think is always kind of a missed opportunity.
Yes. I think that doing nothing is the most common.
Yeah, maybe it isn't always a missed opportunity. And obviously if you have your own anxieties about going into a scenario like this, there's no reason to do anything other than furnish your own comfort and be a decent human being. But it is it can be a tricky thing to negotiate, which you're not really expecting when you're also trying to remember all of the nonsense rules for your plastic wizards.
So there's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on there.
But it's still fun.
Yeah. We'll get you back to one, Tom.
I'll get one eventually. Each free weekend.
Yeah.
Something you've reminded me of, Matt, is the fact that Pip, my partner, very kindly got me Archaon for Christmas.
Ooh.
So I forgot to mention this is a hobby project. And you're right, that is a massive model. And I'm very glad that something swept along and distracted me from the challenge of trying to put it together. I've kind of committed myself to, it's going to happen, I'm going to do Archaon, I'm going to do an Everchosen Army, because I think a centerpiece model like that needs to be done. Not left in a shame pile, but done. But I'm also going to do it slowly. So my plan is by the end of January, I'm going to have built the base. Because I am going to, and that's not to say I will have gotten the plastic circle out of the box. Like I've mostly built Dorgar now, but I'm going to do quite an elaborate scenic base for him and things like that I haven't done before. And so immediately I was distracted by the fact that the Tzeentch book has come along, and I did want to talk about it a little bit because I thought it was interesting, partly because we played a game with it, and it'd be interesting, given that this is the classic matchup for you and me, Tom, it's been interesting to watch how that changes. But now that I've had a couple of weeks with this book and list building and reading the internet, which can be a mixed blessing at times, I think one phenomenon which has been interesting to watch it resolve is like how the theory craft shakes out and how much kind of, I think it's an interesting process to watch an army get changed a lot, and I think Siege has actually been changed quite a bit. We can talk about some of this when we get into the battle report stuff. Yeah, indeed, yeah. But one thing it's been really nice about it is, I think, as with everything, there are probably more ways to play particular armies than are immediately noticeable. And while you necessarily gravitate towards like the best sub-allegiances and things, I think almost the strength of a book nowadays is what feels mandatory versus what is only theoretically mandatory while people are still panicking. And an example of this not going great is something like OC Arc Bone Reapers and Petrifex Elite, because it's a sub-faction that is simply the best one. Yeah. And there's not really much arguing that from a mathematical point of view. Oh, no. There are many other things to Warhammer, and you can argue that they're not the best one from a paint scheme point of view.
They're not the prettiest.
They're not the prettiest. They're probably like there are cool rules that would be fun, like the crematorians that explodes, blowing skeletons that blow up when they die. That's fun. Like there's lots of cool things in there, but crucially, there's probably a best one in there, and that's a bit of a shame. There's and I'm not a very competitive player, but it's interesting, like, I think I felt very lucky with both the Slaves to Darkness book and Tzeentch in that I don't feel like there's any... I mean, I think there are going to be obviously super strong optimized Tzeentch lists, but there feels like there's lots of different room to play interesting kind of combos because they're both such toolbox systems now. And one of the ways they've achieved this for Tzeentch, which I thought was kind of interesting, is like adding more kind of weird little mechanics to the sides, but reducing the overall amount of like mad variance that we were talking about earlier. Like rules that are just sort of like, throw a dice in the air. If it doesn't come back down, you've won the game. Like that kind of old AOS stuff, and just turning it into like systems that interact in interesting ways. And so I'm genuinely looking forward to like playing through all of the sub-factions in that book and building armies around them. And then recently I realised that there's a list I've been working on recently that I think you've been privy to some of the maths on this. But I've realised if you ignore all the sub-factions in Tzeentch specifically, like this, I would love to pick the brains of the people who design the books when they come out, because obviously some things slip under the radar really heavily. Yeah. But sometimes you can see, I think, where things have been deliberately omitted. And so they have all these different sub-factions for Tzeentch now, 6 of them, but none of them really interact with the Destiny dice pool, which is like the Tzeentch Allegiance ability. Yeah. But there are a bunch of artifacts and traits and things elsewhere in the book that you can't take if you're taking one of the sub-factions that do mess with it. And I realised recently that it is possible to turn playing Tzeentch into Dicey Dungeons, which is a game by Terry Kavanagh, video game by Terry Kavanagh about basically like going through a dungeon, rolling dice for different effects, but also figuring out how to build little engines that allow you to re-roll in certain ways or change this result into that result, turn that result into this result to set up like absurd combos that win you fights. And I've realised that it's possible to do this with Tzeentch now in a really silly way that I feel like people are sleeping on completely. And I really, so the battle report people are about to hear on this episode doesn't involve this, which is but it shows kind of how the faction plays sort of out of the book. Right. It's been really fun subsequently to kind of dig into mad things I hadn't considered, like you can get abilities that allow you to potentially re-roll a Destiny dice after you've spent it, but only for one hero who has this ability. Right. And if you do that, suddenly things like, I'm just going to deliberately fail a spell, becomes like a way of taking a bunch of your 2s from the Destiny pool and just rolling them back in as something else. And like, I don't care about this, so I'm just going to, it's my destiny to run 2 inches further. And re-roll things back in. So, long story short, I figured out a way to fairly reliably create a Demon Prince nuclear missile. Because my whole thing is I'm basically determined to make fighting Tzeentch a thing, and it's definitely not. No. But I am going to probably take fighting Tzeentch. I am now going to an event in London in a couple of weeks, just a one-day event at the Badminton Cafe, and I'm taking Punch Tzeentch to this.
I really want to know how this goes.
Because on paper it's so good. Because on paper it's a Demon Prince which is the new Slaves to Darkness updated Demon Prince, but can be in a Tzeentch army because it's a Demon Prince. Who on a 6 to hit does d6 plus 2 mortal wounds. There's 4 attacks, and the whole army is built to generate 6s on Destiny dice for him. Wow! So he always fights first. So you just put him into a hero, then he does 4d6 plus 8 mortal wounds, to whatever that is.
Yeah, that's plenty.
It's enough.
It's enough, and you can potentially, if you build the list, probably get that to 5d6 plus 10.
Right.
Which is, like, I love this because it's so stupid, and because it's a way to take Zinch, the big nerd that doesn't punch people, and create basically baby Scarbrand.
At that point, is he even baby Scarbrand?
I don't know. I think he's actually... Well, he's smaller than Scarbrand. But this is... The only experience I want is to get matched into Scarbrand. Because I'm tired of being bullied by that guy.
He is a jerk.
And I want to fight him with a Fight's First Zinch Demon Prince that inexplicably does, like, 30 mortal wounds. Because Scarbrand can't save that.
No.
It's like... Anyway, that's my dream, but we should actually listen to a battle report from the past detailing what happens when my dreams meet reality. Tom, should we talk about a battle that we've played?
A big battle. It's been a while since we've done a big battle.
It's been almost a year since we've done a big battle.
That's too long for big battles to not happen.
I think that's the tagline for Warhammer 40,000. In the grim darkness of the far future, it's too long for big battles to not happen. This wasn't a battle in the grim darkness of the far future. This was a battle in the
bright and beautiful mortal realms. Well, sometimes bright and beautiful, often full of misery and despair and decay, of course, depending on where you're fighting.
And we've probably signalled this in the podcast that you're listening to, but we're recording this in the past. Yeah, we should disclaim that every time we do this.
We like to sort of Doctor Who our episodes and just really just kind of move around the time stream, get the most out of it.
That is a romantic redefinition of editing as a concept.
That's how I like to think about it.
Like, you know, the film Doctor Who, like Doctor Whoing is the heart of film, really.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
I mean?
That's all it is.
You know, Michael Bay famously shooting for the Doctor Who rather than for the film itself. What am I talking about? We talk about a game we've played, which was kind of El Clasico, right?
It was a return to old battlegrounds. Indeed.
Both fictionally and literally, as we played a game of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, a 1,500 point open war game, pitching Stormcast Eternals against Zinch Arcanites.
It's the classic miniatures monthly matchup. I
feel like we should try and partridge this as much as possible.
Of course.
We're at about a 6 at the moment. We could see how high we can get
right up.
So there's a few reasons. Obviously, we haven't played AOS in a long time. I played a little bit recently, but like it's been a while for me just generally, let alone for the pod. But also, as we will have undoubtedly already spoken about on the pod, new Zinch book, so a chance to find out how it feels. And it's kind of nice to have almost like a blind trial, right, with the fact that we've played this matchup so many times.
Right. And I knew nothing about the new book coming in, so this is really exciting.
So to give some context, because I really want to get your how it felt, how playing against each felt for you, but we should probably give some context for the kinds of armies we were running and the scenario. So the scenario we chose, mostly because it's funny. It's one from I think it's a battle plan that first appeared in Malign Sorcery actually, but it was updated in the 2019 General's Handbook, which is Chained Colossus.
So is this a match play scenario then? It might turn up in tournaments and things.
I don't think it's a match play scenario.
I think it
is. I think it can be.
Right, okay. That'd be fun.
So the only thing that is complicated about this scenario is, well, that it requires a certain endless spell. So Chained Colossus involves two armies fighting to free and control a chained purple son of Shyish named Moloxor the Balesphere.
Very good.
The bad ball.
The very terrible ball.
He's an awful ball. And he lives in a hole in the middle of the map.
Yes.
Or the middle of the board. And at 4 other points and quadrants around him are 4 control points or objectives, basically, that can only be held, can only be captured by heroes. You can obviously retain them per AOS 2 rules after you depart. Moloxor is not controlled like normal predatory endless spells. He can only be moved if one player controls more objectives than the other one. And that player is the one who gets to choose where he goes.
Yeah.
Individual objectives are worth 1 point each, but wherever if Moloxor is wholly within one player's territory at the end of the game, their opponent gets an extra 3 points, which is quite a lot. It's a hearty turn's worth of bonus points.
Potentially a game-winning bounty of points there.
We chose this we didn't pick our armies with this in mind, but it ended up, I think, just on the top level, feeling like a fairly good balance. Like both having picked up sort of open play armies based on what we liked.
Yeah, we both had 3 heroes, which is important for these types of matchups where heroes are required to capture stuff. So that was a good sign. We also showed up with quite similar armies in terms of the sort of infantry to magic to behemoth makeup.
Yeah, or infantry to magic to elites, sort of elite things.
Yeah, right.
So do you want to take me through your army? Because it's a very traditional mix of things.
Yeah, it was a very simple army, to be honest. So Tantris returns, Lord's Lesson on Drakov, and he brings with him 2 Knights Incantors who are Stormcast Wizards. They also had a unit of 9 Sequitors, and it would be 10 if I had painted enough of them, but 9 for now. A unit of 10 Retributors, which I've not used for years, and I forgot that they're quite good. And then also 2 units of 5 Judicators, which are Stormcast Archers, and very good in the game.
They're just good in the game.
They're just good in the game. And that was my entire army, with very, very straightforward block infantry force.
So one thing I want to do is eventually have tried all of the different Tzeentch sub-allegiances, but I've run one that I've now run twice, which is Cult of the Transient Form, which is the cult where Kyrek Acolytes can aspire to become Zangor. Something that basically didn't factor in, but we'll figure that out.
It's a great rule, though. I love
it. It is
the
a
rules.
great rule. And it gives us some useful artifacts and things. But it was an entirely mortal army. Partly to run some stuff that I finished recently, but also because I like it. Just like I think since our earliest days playing AOS with me with a heavily demon Tzeentch army, which basically means lots of magic and lots of shooting.
Yeah.
And me eventually discovering, getting more knowledgeable about the game and more knowledgeable what I enjoy about the game, that the combat phase is the best phase of the game for a bunch of different reasons. So, wanting to build a more combat heavy force, etc. So to this point. So my army was the Ogre Thaumaturge, Zangor Shaman, and the new Fate Master, who I finished painting yesterday at the time we were recording this.
Yeah, lovely conversion as well.
And a big block of 20 Zangor, which I think is now the optimal block. I've painted 30 of them, but I don't feel bad about having painted 30 of them, because it's useful to have extra Zangor for when you gain them from spells and transformations and things.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It's good to have that extra buffer. A unit of 10 Kyrek Acolytes, big burly men who run around and try and help, basically.
Yeah.
And just want to be a bird, which is completely reasonable and relatable. A unit of 3 Zangor Enlightened on discs, 3 Skyfires on discs, so both complements of Elite Zangor, and a Mutalith Vortex Beast.
Yeah, that thing's crazy.
A lovely model.
Yeah.
Who I keep... has mascot quality for me, I think, more than anything else. He's... maybe I've talked about him when we talk about what we've been painting, but it's a tentacle monster that's also sort of like a big dog elephant sort of thing.
Yeah. It's a very confused animal, isn't it, really?
And it's carrying a portal to the realm of chaos on its back, which is really
That looks rad.
its point.
Yeah.
Because it mutates things around it. So let's, I guess, how did we go about attempting to sway Moloch's or the Bale sphere to our various causes? Actually, maybe as a note of context, is it that we're thinking about this from what's the narrative here? Because we haven't really got like a grand campaign necessarily, but it has been
drifting back into the same realm, right?
Yeah, and I quite like the idea, because the theme for this is spell hunting and things like that. That that maybe your lore hunters have been out in the realms for a long time, tracking down these sort of wayward energies of the Arcanum Optima,
right?
And now maybe still in the particular area of Shaman that we've been fighting over for ages, maybe somewhere else completely. They're kind of re-encountering a new generation of this particular cult that just won't stay down.
Yeah, I think the lore hunters in that particular region are just doomed to keep on putting down resurgent Tzeentch cults that come back in different forms every sort of century or so. And of course, the Soulcast being eternal, as their name suggests, and coming back time and time again, they're so familiar with the threat of Tzeentch that they're almost like special forces that Sigmar wants to deploy against Tzeentchian incursions in this particular realm. So they're used to the terrain, they're used to the type of villains they face. They've destroyed greater demons. They've destroyed what they call the greater demons of Tzeentch.
Lords of Change.
Lords of Change. Destroyed a few of those in spectacular fashion. So they've proved their worth. So they've been left here to guard the realms against resurgent Tzeentch, and they're very good at stamping them out.
They're very good at it. Yeah. And I think because the last game we played back in April last year was kind of about my Khorne forces basically trying to escape this particular area of the realm of metal, which was fully conquered by you because you won the big Game at Miniatures Monthly
Yes.
live back in 2017.
I honked the big horn.
No, 2018.
2018, honked the big horn. Started. It was very close. It's an exceptional game of Warhammer, vast in scope. And that sense has granted Sigmar control of that particular realm. But you've got to keep fighting for it. Chaos is always there.
And you've got to keep hitting it with a hammer, basically.
That's right.
Forever.
That's right. Yeah.
Because there's no other solution. You can't, reach out to those people and try and address their needs.
No.
Just hit them with a hammer.
Hit them with the big hammer.
Yeah.
That's Stormcast.
But in this case, Resurgence Inch fighting for a big ball while Tantris threatens to take his ball and go home.
Yes. And Tantris, by the way, has been a liability in the last few games that he's been part of. But he's been reforged so many times now that he's sort of brain dead, but he knows what to do with Tzeentch armies. I think he's good at... It's like a sort of a wind-up toy that you point at a particular villain.
Maybe it's even a strength. Maybe he's so dumb now that the kind of, the machinations of Tzeentch, the kind of you'll go insane if you look at it element of it, just doesn't bother him anymore.
No, he's been swallowed by a Terrorgeist twice, and it takes a lot of dice for that to happen, but it did happen to him. And he's encountered horrendous deaths, facing both the Tzeentch and the undead across the mortal realms. And he's not quite right, but I still love him. I still let him out of his cage occasionally just to play.
So, let's talk about the game we actually played. What was your kind of approach to this going in? Given that we both had 3 heroes and it was so central to heroes and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I've learned is not to put things in space at the start of the deployment phase. Put things in space at the end so that you can see the spread of the opponent's force and see where there's kind of gaps where you might be able to drop down. So I put the Retributors in space, thinking that if the board kind of fragmented, if it's weird because we had a proper 6x4 board this time. And 1,500 points, once it's actually spread across the board, there's loads of gaps everywhere, actually.
Yeah.
If you're playing on a proper sized table, the idea of dropping down or summoning becomes much more viable. So I hope the game might fragment and I might be able to drop them in the backfield and get them to sort of charge into the rear of some important units and take them out. So they were in space. But the Secretors basically were responding to how you were deploying, where you put the weight of your force onto your right flank. So that I put the big unit of Secretors there with a hero as well. And basically it's let's match our infantry units and see what happens on this flank. And on the other flank, it was always going to be drop down shenanigans.
Yeah.
And trying to disrupt the force in that way.
Because points wise, my force was actually evenly split because I put, it was the block of Zangor, the Karak Acolytes and the Fate Master on my right flank and the Vortex Beast, the other 2 heroes and both units of Elite Zangor on the other side. So there was more points worth of stuff on the other side.
Yes.
There was more bodies on that side.
Yeah. So there was an infantry flank and there was an elite flank.
Yeah.
Which is quite a cool setup to the game. And it's let's match our best units against one another and see what happens.
Yeah, right. I think one thing that was interesting about this is because it was a hero capturing, only heroes can capture scenario, I was less worried about the Retributors because they couldn't sit on an objective.
Yes.
Which meant that I didn't have to shift them, really. I don't like them, but they're not going to run onto one of my backfield objectives and sit there for the rest of the game.
Yeah, with 30 wounds in the 10-man unit.
So yeah, I'm trying to think about how that first turn played out because obviously it feels like it's ages ago now.
Well, I dropped down the Retributors straight away.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't initially planning to do until I'd seen the full deployment. And then I realised just having a big load of Retributors near your elites 9 inches away, also near the point, kind of perhaps opening an avenue for a hero to charge up there and take it, would be valuable in the long run. But of course they come down, they can't charge, they have to sort of...
Well, they can, but it's a long charge.
Which I did fail, reasonably. But they came down, I think just having that big threat pop down is a sort of, always a psychological advantage as well as a tactical advantage almost. You've got to sort of think about what you do with them. Do you engage? Do you not? Do you what are they going to do next turn? They can only move 4 inches, they're really slow. But what they touch, they kill. And that's the guarantee you get from Retributors, which that's the Retributor guarantee. What they touch, they kill. And that's what I've kind of missed from not running them for so long. So I've run Vanguard for so long because I love those models and they're my best painted models. But they're not very good in the game, really. I haven't figured out to use them, really. It's half and half. It's part of their War Scrolls and it's part of me not really using them properly. But I know how to use a big unit Retributors. I know how to get into the army and just mess stuff up.
It's a tank, basically.
It's a great big tank. It's great. I need to finish basing them.
Yeah.
One day I will do that.
So my opening was kind of... So I think a lot of what Tzeentch... Tzeentch is very adaptable, particularly because some of the units are so fast.
Yes.
And I realised that I had two major advantages. One is that I had two heroes with a 16-inch move. You had two foot-slugging Knight Incantors and Tantras.
Right.
So, and those Knight Incantors can die real quick.
Yeah, you can.
So, in terms of getting on objectives, I realised, like, sticking around to fight your Retributors doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. No. Like, I have no unit that can stand toe-to-toe to them at all. Like, I could probably whittle them down eventually if I focused a lot of things, but there's no point. Just kill your heroes, get into your back line, control the objectives, win that way.
Right.
And there are two things about the way Tzeentch works now, particularly given that I was going second, that I want to take advantage of. And I think we can talk about some of these changes, but when you roll your destiny dice with Tzeentch, you're kind of looking, I think, for two things. Obviously, it depends on the composition of your army, but let's talk about agendas. We probably may have talked about this already on the pod, but these are part of the new Tzeentch Allegiance ability, which are essentially like plots you can declare at the start of your hero phase. Like, this turn I am going to do a 9-inch charge. This turn I'm going to kill a hero or a monster with 9 or more wounds. Or I'm going to cast 2 spells on a 9 or more. All of these things. And if you pull them off, the unit that pulls them off gets a permanent buff, which are often very powerful.
Yeah.
And there are some really obvious combos here. So both Zangor and Zangor Enlightened love the +1 attack for succeeding at a 9-inch charge one, because that actually puts Zangor back to the power level back when they first came out, and they got an absurd number of attacks. It kind of puts them back there. And one of the cool things about that particular one is you can guarantee it, because you can move to 9 inches away, and as long as you have 2 destiny dice that add up to 9, you can make it happen.
Yeah, sure.
And aside from any effects in the game that slow down charges and things like that, which do exist, there's basically no way to fail it, which is great. And so when I roll my destiny dice, the first thing I looked at was like, what have I got? Because if I have a 4 and a 5, which I did, I think I had a weird destiny roll. I had 4 2s. Like 4 2s, 2 3s, a 4, a 5, and a 6, I think.
Lots of 2s.
I had a lot of 2s. But one thing about that is you look at the 4 and 5 and go, okay, that's going to guarantee that charge.
Yeah, right.
To get that +1 attack. And then any 6s that you don't need for that, personally, I think, particularly in this scenario, are best saved for the Skyfires. So the plan was guarantee some Fated Arrow, D3 mortal wounds things with the Skyfire arrows, and just try and take out your heroes. Try and snipe them with the Skyfires and so on, and then guarantee that big charge with the Zangor and let them go to work. But on my first, and that was kind of all going to plan, except on my first turn, I made, I would say, probably 2 mistakes, I think, thinking about it. So I decided to ignore your block of Retributors completely, move everything forwards, including the Vortex Beast. So the Vortex Beast, in each of my hero phases, I can pick a unit within 18 inches of it and roll a dice, and they get some kind of effect. And on anything at 4, 5, and 6 are all various mortal wound effects, which up to and including turning people into spawn, which is great. 1s, 2s, and 3s are debuffs, mostly debuffs to movement. So on that first turn, Tantris got hit with Trog Brains, so he's dumber now.
He's even dumber than he was before, which is extraordinary.
I was hoping to do loads of mortal wounds to him, but yeah. And then the idea was to send the Skyfires and the Enlightened sort of screeching that way to go assassinate some heroes, and just catapult the Zangor up the other side of the board, because 20 Zangor can do a lot of work. 360 points worth of stuff. Smash into your Sequitors and Judicators and start really holding you down in that other area.
Yeah, right.
I made 2 mistakes. One is Zangor really, really want their buffs. The Fate Master has a very good buff for them, but also they just get +1 to wound from being within 12 of an Arcanite hero. However, I realised at that point that I had done something real dumb, which was I had deployed the Ogroid and the Zangor Shaman on one flank, and the Fate Master on the other.
Right.
But you're always going to need to keep one hero back in order to actually cap the objective.
In the first turn, yeah.
In the first turn. So I had to keep the Fate Master back, and I think that changed a lot of the dynamic of that fight. Because it basically meant that the still went for it with the Zangor. They screamed ahead and made it into combat with the Sequitors, but they didn't do a lot because they were lacking all their buffs. I mean, there was one, we posted this on Discord, there was one incredible roll in there.
There's some bad rolls, yeah.
Which was 2 Zangor mutants with 5 attacks each, so total 10 attacks, throwing them into the Judicators, 10 attacks, 4 up to hit, and I rolled 8 3s and 2 1s.
It's extraordinary. I was delighted, obviously, but that's a pretty crazy roll.
And I'm real dumb, I've no interest in moaning about dice. It was just one of those incredible
what? yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so that was a bit, it's more to say that was the mistake, was I think a lot of playing Tzeentch effectively now is managing bubbles where heroes can be. Because heroes are very maneuverable, but if they're not in the right place,
tricky, isn't it? Because they're also quite fragile. A lot of them. Actually, the Fate Master is less fragile. That's kind of a really cool thing about Tzeentch, the new book. I don't know if it's made the Fate Master tougher. Or...
The Fate Master's always had that ability, actually.
Right, really?
It's just they used to be more expensive.
Right.
They used to have a command ability that didn't make any sense.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. But I found the Fate Master to be a great character in the Tzeentch because it's really survivable in a way that the other heroes aren't, and they still grant the buffs to the units nearby, which seems it seems great.
So to explain how that works, the Fate Master has a 4-up save, which is rare enough for Tzeentch because almost always
it's all
5-up
fives, right? Yeah.
But they get +2 to their save in combat if their opponent can't fly and isn't a monster. Which means they're still a little bit vulnerable to anything that can kind of proc mortal wounds on a 6 or something like that, because that will still work. But it means that it's a 2-up save against almost everything. I think in hindsight, because there's some artifacts you can do to make that even better, I would have been better not running my Cult of the Transient Form, but actually giving the Fate Master an artifact that made their save even better. But anyway, so these Fate Masters stayed behind to babysit the objective. Zangor ran into the midst of battle and started to bog down some Sequitors.
That was a good scrap.
And everything else moved forward. I think the Skyfire shooting did 2 mortal wounds, but nothing else, I think, to a hero. And then that was 2 mortal wounds. I actually got 2 6s, one from Destiny Dice, but it was 2 mortal wounds between them. And then it turned into the roll-off. And the roll-off was an interesting one because I rolled a 6 and then you rolled a 6.
Yeah, I love those roll-offs. So if that's automatically win in...
You win draws, yeah.
Draws.
In AOS
correct.
2, yeah.
Yeah, in AOS 2, which just means less rolling, I suppose. But that was very useful for me because it meant I could sort of push up a bit with Tantris. I could particularly get the Retributors around the corner of a giant Chaos Relic that was in the way. And then they were in charge range of the back of the... not Skyfires,
It was the Skyfires.
The Skyfires.
Oh, we forgot something.
Oh, yes.
The Enlightened Charge Tantris.
Yes, that's true.
What happened when the Enlightened Charge Tantris?
So Tantris actually woke up and did a fight and was quite good. He repelled most of the blows. He struck back and I took some artifacts with him. I took a particular hammer. I can't remember what it was called, but
that's a very Tantris response.
Yeah, Tantris doesn't know. It's just it hits things. It's good, but it gives you 2 extra attacks against Chaos specifically, which would make sense for him because all he does is fight Chaos and he's there to squash Chaos Legions down. And he struck back, and the Dracoth struck back and killed 2 of the Skyfires. Enlightened. Sorry.
I think he did 10 damage total because he did kill 2 of them and did 2 damage.
Also wounded the remaining one. Which is the thing is when Tantris gets hot, he's great. The more dice you kind of put on him to roll with those attacks, the better it is with a Lord Celestin. But his normal profile, he rolls, I think, 6 dice between him and the Dracoth, and it's so easy just to whiff that. And that's often what happens with the heroes in Stormcast armies.
I think it's true generally, actually. Heroes that can't provide their own rerolls or something.
Yes.
I've been thinking about this a lot recently while list building for Slaves to Darkness.
Right.
Slaves to Darkness has really easy access to rerolls for heroes.
Right.
And it's sort of low-key one of the best things about the army.
Right, yeah.
Because they provide their own marks, right?
It gives them that bit of extra consistency that you can have the best profile in the world, but if you're only rolling 6 dice, you just don't know what's going to happen from turn to turn, really.
But yeah, so in your second turn, the Retributors ran around a big Chaos Star, charged into the Skyfires.
Yeah, they did. That was bad news for the Skyfires.
It was bad news for Skyfires, actually.
Yeah, they just about got caught. So the slowest unit in my army managed to catch some Skyfires, just thanks to the double turn, basically. Which was huge, because those Skyfires would have gone and killed the Incantor quite quickly, I think, on my own point.
If I'd gotten the double that turn, they
for sure.
would have gone.
And at that point, I'm down to 2 heroes, and Tantris is kind of stranded in the middle near the purple sun. But luckily, with the double turn, I managed to catch them and pin them basically, and that was. It didn't matter if I killed them; just pinning them was enough to sort of they could run retreat, of course, but just that turn, getting that damage on them, killing a few of them.
Yeah, you killed 2, I think.
Yeah, which is massive. And I killed 2, and only a few of them were in contact. Only a few of them managed to actually make it into enough range to strike. But those the great maces they have are just amazing.
They're great maces.
They're great maces. They've changed the rules on them a little bit, but they're still bloody good.
Yeah. That allowed the Mutalith Vortex Beast to pile in.
Yes, it did.
With his weird attacks.
His giant tentacle mouth.
Which did actually eat one whole Retributor.
Yeah, in fact, so I love the 3d6 attacks that he does with his maw. And I love 3d6 attacks. Because I remember fighting a giant Seraphim dinosaur thing at the tournament in Nottingham at Games Workshop HQ when we were playing doubles. And that thing did 2 or 3d6 attacks. And it's incredible how bad it is. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? It's like, wow, I could get 18 attacks out of this thing. But if they're 4+4+, it doesn't matter anyway. It's not really going to do much. No rend, damage 1.
That's why I was impressed when it killed anything.
Yeah, it did eat one thing. It did eat one thing, which is great.
Good for you.
Yeah, good job, Mutalith.
Its job really, the reason for piling in, I realised its job is to be a big 12 wound roadblock.
Yeah.
To something.
It's big base as well. So
big base, gets in the way.
Yeah.
It's never going to achieve much. I feel like with the Mutalith, you kind of want to screen it for ages and get as many hero phases as you can out of it. Mm-hmm. But its effect in the hero phase is so hit and miss.
Right.
Because I got... so it survived that turn because it piled in after your Retributor's already fought. Mm-hmm. And then on my second turn, it managed to make your Knight Incanto slower.
Yes.
But because on a 5 or a 6, it does D6 mortal wounds. There's always that chance that it just deletes a hero.
Yes, that's huge, isn't it?
But I feel like the weird thing about Mutaliths is they're not that expensive as monsters go. They're 170 points. But I think if I was building for the tournament, I probably there are better uses of 170 points in Siege Army.
Yeah.
There just are. That's either a hero or more enlightened or something like that.
Yeah, all of those are better.
Or Ember spells or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I'd even take the command points over a Mutalith. To be honest.
You big useless dog.
I love it. What a great model as well.
It's a beautiful model. I think it needs, just to step out for a moment, I'm thinking about it. I said this before we played, but you look at it and you see monster. What it really is the Chaos War Shrine is this big slow thing that you don't really want to be fighting with, but it provides buffs.
Yes.
The Vortex Beast is a big slow thing that actually doesn't really want to be fighting, that provides debuffs. And that's kind of the idea. But I think the debuffs need to be more significant for it to be worth it.
Yeah, movement debuffs aren't amazing. Well, they could...
Given that 2 of them are movement debuffs.
If one of the movement debuffs was you can't run, that would be great. But -1 to run, who cares?
Yeah. I think if that we've got plenty of battle report to get on with, but I think if it was because I get that on a 4-up it starts to do mortal wounds. That's interesting.
That's good.
But the other things it can do are -1 bravery, -1 to run rolls, and -1 move. I think if one of those was permanent -1 hit, or even just at 1 turn of -1 to hit, suddenly that's massive.
Yeah, that's really good.
I think either that, maybe permanent -1 save would be pretty big as well.
That'd be amazing, yeah.
Or something half the next charge roll for this model, something like that.
Yeah.
Where suddenly
I like the idea that it's basically useless in combat. It's basically not going to do anything. It's sort of not that tough. It's got plenty of wounds. It's going to take a few turns. But I like the idea that it'd be a debuff unit that you just have to delete because of those effects. Something that you really have to think about. It's just not in that place at the moment.
No, I think, or giving it something not to redesign the Mutalith Vortex Beast on the fly, but something if there's a hero within 3 inches of it, you can pick which effect it does. Right. Something like that. Or there's an effect for Slaves to Darkness at the moment, which on a different table, under certain conditions, you can either, you can adjust the result by + or -2. Right. And that sort of thing where it'd be if there's a hero nearby, you can tweak it or something like that. So you can try and get the result you want. Yeah. That would give it something, I think. But Godspeed, you big Vortex weirdo.
I'm glad it was on the board.
I'm glad you were here.
I enjoyed fighting it. It was great.
Yeah. So in your, so I went second that turn, and that was kind of a big. that was sort of being able to bring the plan to bear. So on my second turn, the Skyfire ran the hell away.
Yeah, reasonable.
Ran for the back line. The Zangor Shaman sprinted for your back line, which you had left behind, so I could grab an objective there.
Yeah, that was a mistake I made.
The Ogroid Thaumaturge charged both Tantris and the Knight Incantor.
Yeah.
And the Knight Incantor at this point, I think, had two health, or...
He'd taken 2 wounds, I think.
He'd taken 2 wounds.
Yeah.
And Tantris had 5 left.
Yes.
The charge, he can do mortal wounds on a charge on a 2-up, but I rolled a 1, so that didn't happen. And then the Fate Master, now kind of able to do her thing, charged for the Knight Incantor. And I was really confident about this because, like, that bonus to save the Knight Incantor is neither flying nor a monster, so can get in there and shift that Knight Incantor and then take your backfield. So I was kind of fairly confident in being able to get all 4 objectives on the second turn. What happened that turn? So the Fate Master failed to kill the Knight Incantor, which was fairly big, although the Fate Master's attacks aren't amazing.
No.
Not having Rend, I think, hurts her a little bit.
It's that resilience, I think, that Zeech often lacks. I think that's what makes the Fate Master really good.
Yeah.
Based on what I've seen of her.
Very resilient, but not necessarily the assassin you send in to kill something.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The Ogroid, I was really worried about the Ogroid. So the Ogroid gets full rerolls if they take any wounds, but I really didn't want to let it go second against Tantris. Because I just thought it might just get... Given that Tantris had just done 10 wounds to a unit with the same number of... same save. Needn't have worried.
No. Tantris, in true Tantris form, decided to whiff that turn. I'm quite used to this happening, which is why I don't really rely on him to kill stuff, which is a shame because he's riding a big dinosaur and you'd expect that he'd be quite good at killing things. Occasionally he just goes ham and just is great, but you just had to expect him to whiff, and he did. He did,
yeah. So the Ogroid actually got away with that. What else happened? So the Zangor Sequitur Judicator combat kind of dragged on. I mean, actually, that turn, the Zangor and the Judicators both tore chunks out of each other.
Yes, it was pretty bloody on that flank.
Not Judicators, sorry, Sequiturs.
Yes.
But the increasingly crucial thing is that on both flanks, the Sequiturs, sorry, the Judicators,
the archers, yeah.
The archers continued to be kind of left alone.
Yeah.
Like, I was actually trying to put as many Zangor attacks as I could into the Judicators, recognizing them as actually, in some ways, the bigger threat.
Yes.
But they just kept kind of surviving. Like, I think that they have a 4-up save, right?
They've got a 4-up save.
Yeah, so it's kind of, they were just getting through it, and that was sort of a positioning thing on my part where I think in hindsight, if I'd waited a turn at the Zangor and angled them into the Judicators, that may have been a...
Yeah. I don't know, because Sequiturs, if they decide to charge their weapons, they're a match for the Zangor.
Yeah, definitely. Particularly having 10 with 9 of them.
Yeah, and actually, strangely, rolled pretty well for even the melee attacks for the archers. So they actually killed quite a few on both flanks, actually, when they eventually got into combat. So the thing with Stormcast, it's always 2 wounds behind a 4-up save. And if you don't have Rend or Mortal Wound output, they're always going to be tough to shift. Even if you've got a massive unit of Skeletons or a massive unit of Zangor, like they're resilient in that way.
Yeah, right. And the so I sort of moved up. So but I did manage to get all 3 objectives that turn.
Yes.
So the idea was, I managed to get 3 of them. So I had my 2 in the backfield in my half, and then I stole the one that you'd left behind.
Yeah, that was the biggest mistake I made in the game, was moving the Knight Incantor off that point, because it wasn't. The Incantor wasn't going to do anything in the middle of the battle or in the middle of the field, so I should have just left him on the point and sort of had him there negating a fast Zeech hero on a disc that could just fly over and nick it.
Yeah.
So I should have. That was the biggest mistake I made.
I think there were a few other things that happened. So I took my Zangor Shaman had the very good spell Arcane Suggestion, which is the one that's either D3 mortal wounds. You pick either D3 mortal wounds, -1 to hit and wound, or -1 save.
Really good.
But because you had 2 Knight Incantors, that was a very good use of one of their once per game guaranteed unbinds. Like, just...
Yeah, I'll always take Incantors against each, because that guaranteed unbind at the right time can be absolutely crucial. And you still get to try to unbind with rolls as well with them. And that's such a novelty for Stormcast. Like, before that chamber opened, they had no chance. They could do nothing against each, basically.
Yeah,
but they had no one who could stand it. They had like priests and things, but no one could unbind stuff.
Well, it was interesting. One thing I noticed during the game, and I wonder if you noticed this, was that our phases were about the same length for both of our
Yeah,
armies.
definitely.
How did that must have felt different?
No, it's good. Yeah, it's really good. I think, I don't know, I think there's loads of stuff. We'll come on to talk about this each book in detail, but for me fighting against them, it just seems like it's so much more streamlined in terms of, apart from perhaps like Zangor weapon profiles and the many, many different profiles they have, like that creates a lot of extra time and kind of admin basically. But apart from that, just even when you're describing to me the horror rules, like the pink horror rules, it seems like, oh, that's just a quick and easily resolved thing that could just happen in about 2 minutes in a battle. And you don't have to necessarily go through the book looking at, very specific rules.
Or tallying points for one thing or another thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's tallying the invisible points that might turn into summons at some point in the future. It all just seemed much clearer to me and more straightforward. I understood your army much more. I think it's possibly because it was a more infantry-focused army.
Yeah.
And I find it easier to see a unit and know what they can do rather than, keep in my head a lot of abstract spells and abstract invisible effects.
Yeah.
And I feel as though fighting Zeech there was many fewer abstract invisible effects and much more just, this unit is now better now because they're within range of this, and it's very clear.
Yeah.
It's much clearer.
And I think you're right about the Zangor weapon profile still being a bit mad. I think it's good that they are a unit that is designed to be run as a big block that goes and kills things.
Yeah.
Because they're so expensive. They're 360 points, so you're probably not going to have more than one of them. You're probably going to take one and then some other battle line that's cheaper, and then some other elites and things and heroes to fill out your army. And that means that while the Zangor War Scroll is mad, you're probably not resolving more than one combat with them.
Yes, good point.
In a turn.
Yeah.
Whereas, like hypothetically, you could take multiple big blocks of Zangor, but that's most of your army at that point.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have other stuff that's also taking another time.
Yeah, that's really true.
Whereas previously, I think it was very possible to have multiple things that all took ages to resolve.
Yeah. Yeah, quite right.
So that was my second turn. You won the roll-off for the next round as well.
Yes.
So I'm trying to remember this round 3. This was when, I think this was the scary shooting turn.
Yeah, so I think I turned it on, by which I mean, I rolled well with the Judicator primes, and the primes, what happens with them is, you roll to hit on 2+, and if they hit, they do d6 wounds. So and that could just double the output of damage for the unit, and if they roll well, they're a unit unto themselves that are basically, everyone else in the unit is chaff to protect the primes when they go mad like that. So I can't remember who it actually shot off, but
The Zangor Shaman.
Zangor Shaman went down.
And the Fate Master.
Fate Master went down.
Because
So
that was one of the big things, is the Fate Master's defensive bonuses don't do anything against shooting.
Right.
Which is one of the main reasons why the Judicators were so scary.
Yeah.
Because it's like, the Fate Master then goes to being a unit with a 4-up save against a unit with a rend.
Yeah, right. Judicators, they live for this, to pick off weak heroes. That's their entire purpose, is just to do that. Like, linchpin heroes in an undead army and a Tzeentch army, if you show your face, they'll shoot it off. Basically, that's what they're there to do. And they really did it. And I'll always take them over, for example, long strikes. The long strikes, again, is like that. You only get 3 dice rolls with them. They're amazing. They could delete like very, very powerful units if you roll correctly. But you're rolling 3 dice instead of 5 dice, and one of them turning into d6 attacks. And it's that dice maths that just makes Judicators very, very good, and still quite extremely good for the points as well.
And their battle line.
And their battle line, which is insane. It's really good. It's a really good unit. They're still great. It's weird, when we played in the Miniatures Monthly event in Cardiff, I took loads and loads of shooting, and Stormcast shooting scales up in a terrifying way. If you go above the 2,000 point mark, if you're getting like multiple units of Judicators plus long strikes and other stuff, maybe ballista and stuff like that, their shooting is formidable. Like, it's quite scary. And in a smaller game like this with 2 units of Judicators on the board, which you try to disrupt, but it's very hard. Like, there's still two wounds each, they're still hard to get rid of.
I think in hindsight, like, I should have not gone for the charge with the Enlightened and just got the Enlightened into them, because...
Just to shut them down.
Yeah, but even then, like, the Enlightened can't really weather the shooting, because they're a 5-up save.
That's the thing, because you can shoot into close combat.
Yeah.
They just have massive damage output potential, even if their swords are rubbish.
Yeah.
So they try and hit them with the swords, and they just pull the bows out and kill you with the bows instead. So I don't know what you're supposed to do about it, really. Like, fast attacks, Skyfires and stuff like that, getting into them, probably do the job, but they'd already been...
maybe some like cheap units of screamers.
Screamers will do it. Screamers are tough enough to weather the shooting.
The screamers will die because they're like
Eventually.
5 up save, 9 wounds in a unit, but like they will force you to shoot them.
Yeah,
rather than
probably for like 2 turns, right?
Yeah, 1 or 2, I'd say. Yeah, totally. This was also the turn that so the Ogroid was locked in melee combat with a Knight Incantor and Tantris, and they both ran away.
They both just tactically retreated, I'll say, but ran away basically.
And I managed to actually, because I was controlling the Purple Sun, and I like the idea that this moment plot wise was, despite the battle definitely going Stormcast way casualties wise, I did manage to kind of free Moloch Saw the Bale Sphere
from his chains
and shunt him into your territory.
Yeah, right.
Over the Ogroid, Tantris, and the Knight Incantor. Purple Suns only do damage or even kill models outright on a 6. There were no 6s rolled, so no one took any damage.
Everyone was fine. It was freaky but fine.
It was good, actually.
It was a pretty freaky time, Tantris. But he was alright, yeah.
It was fine. Didn't barely noticed.
No.
But I like the idea that after this happened, both of your heroes realised, oh, we were here to contain that.
Wait a minute. Yeah, that's what we're here for, absolutely. I think I was obsessed with trying... obviously, you could just take out your opponent's heroes in the hero-based scenario, job done. And the Ogre Thaumaturge is the beastliest, literally, but it's the one that could actually kill me. It's the one that actually kill Stormcast reliably. So I wanted to kind of try and take it out, or at least wound it enough for the shooting to take him out. But that terrible round of Tantris combat meant that it's like, well, screw it, it's not going to happen. So Tantris decided to book it. So the other side of the board used the command point just to run, not as fast as he would have, because he was skag-brained, what was it?
Trog-brained.
Trog-brained. So he couldn't run as quite as fast as he normally could, but it still booked it 15 inches towards the objective. It's weird to me
that he's too stupid to run fast.
It doesn't quite make sense, does it? It's like, any idiot can run fast.
Yeah. I like the idea maybe it's just hesitance. Like, he goes like, I should go over there. He just thinks about it for a bit.
Sort of like, should I though? Yeah. And then off he goes. But it's not even him. His Dracoth is transporting him. The Dracoth isn't an idiot. It's perfectly.
Maybe that is what happened though. Maybe the Trog brains has been applied to the Dracoth.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe that's it. It's like he's already carrying a big Trog on his back, and now he's fuzzy as well. But that meant that Tantris could get in range of the of your objective in your backfield.
Yeah.
Especially because I know at that point it was just swarming with Retributors as well. So
just so many Retributors.
It was just like, it was a wall of steel. Nothing was getting in there. Like, Tantris was going to capture that, and nothing that Siege could do about it, really. So we'd kind of swapped sides a bit. We'd kind of swapped ends on the right flank where our elites were fighting. And on the left flank where the infantry were fighting, it was just a massive bloodbath where everyone just slowly killed each other. Yeah,
it was a massive bloodbath, and it was an interesting situation because so you also moved your Knight Incantor back to the home field objective that he had been.
Yes,
to kind of cap it back,
which is where it should always have been.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he realised this mistake. He was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have left."
Whoops. Yeah.
He'd left the gas on.
Yes.
And then I think the Fate Master going down in combat. Actually, so the Fate Master took like 6 wounds from shooting. Luckily, she had a +1 wound artifact, but then she took a hit in combat. Because again, that rend, it means it's only a 3-up save.
Yeah, right.
I'm a man who can roll a 2. So that's that was that. So that was sort of the failure of her job, which was to capture that corner from that one Knight Incantor.
Yeah.
Who at this point had like 2 wounds left, I think. So anyway, so the Ogroid, now left on his own on my turn, heads in that direction with the Kyrix. Kyrix shooting basically did nothing at all in this most of the game. And then we had a scenario, and then I had one Skyfire left who did shoot your Knight Incantor on the back of the head.
That's true. Yeah. And really irritated the Knight Incantor.
Yeah, I think he had 4 wounds left, and the Skyfire did 3 mortal wounds with shooting.
Yeah, down to 1 wound. It's like, ow!
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, why?
Yeah. And it moved to 3 inches away. And so the plan was charge the Kyrix into the Judicators on your left flank, my right. Charge the Ogroid in to the Knight Incantor. Because the Ogroid on a 2-up does D3 mortal wounds. There's a good chance of killing the 2 wounds hero, if not killing him in combat outright, and getting in range of that final objective with the Ogroid. And then a 3-inch charge on the Skyfire. Go kill that Knight Incantor.
Yeah, right.
So the Kyrix were, I think, 5 inches away from making that charge.
Yeah.
They rolled a 4.
Yeah.
The Ogroid had a 5-inch charge to make, rolled a 3, I command pointed it,
Yeah.
rolled a 2.
I was so sure you were going to make that charge.
Yeah, nope.
I was delighted. The snake eyes were just like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm so lucky.
And then the Skyfire only made it on a 4.
Yeah, just about got in there.
Just a real slow kind of turn.
Yeah.
Everyone's feeling tired.
It's getting towards the final third of the battle. Yes.
So that was a bit of a shocker because that meant that that objective would have changed hands that turn if my Ogroid had made it in.
Yes,
but
that's
didn't.
right.
So that meant the Skyfire killed the Knight Incantor by itself, which is great.
Yeah.
But kind of nothing much else happened.
The right flank was decided at this point. It was empty but for Stormcast and your one hero, wasn't it?
It was empty but for one Skyfire.
Yes.
yeah, exactly. And then we rolled off, and I did get the double turn.
That's right.
That turn, which meant that the Ogroid could charge into the Knight Incantor and did make it, and did flatten him with the mortal wounds on the charge.
Did well. Yeah.
And I chose to try and run back towards my own backfield objective with the Kyrex while shooting at the Judicators, which did nothing.
Yeah.
Basically with the idea that on the next turn, just try and screen Tantris. Because at this point, so one crucial thing was because I failed all those charges, I couldn't force you to equalize on objectives.
Right.
So you got 3 of them, which meant that you could move the Purple Sun, which meant that the Purple Sun, which couldn't make it all the way into my territory, did make it to the midway point on the board.
That's right.
Which meant that those +3 points for having it in your opponent's territory were no longer mine. And at this point, this is the maths of the scoreline kind of shifted, where you were 1 point ahead.
Yeah.
And so it kind of changed the dynamic of it slightly. Then your turn, this was the Judicators shooting Kyrex turn.
Yes. It's quite good when Judicators shoot Kyrex because they've only got 1 wound each, which I didn't realise, and that is rough. So there are only 3 Judicators left on my left flank.
Yeah.
But 4 left on the right flank, but they all had line of sight. That's all it takes. So I think they rinsed 4 of them or something like that.
You killed 5, and then I rolled a 6 on the Battle Shark.
And they all ran away.
They did.
That's
all
the
run
end
away.
of that unit just vanished off the board.
So at this point, we were going into round 5?
Yes.
We're going into round 5, but I only had the Ogroid Thaumaturge.
It was literally the only thing on the board.
Yeah.
Everything else was dead. And Tantris was booking it across the board to get to the other point in your backfield, which he was guaranteed to tag in turn 5, pretty much, because there was the screen that you'd sent had been deleted by shooting. So there was an outside chance where Ogroid might have been able to sort of get a great run roll and then a great charge roll and then perhaps get in on one of my points. But even then, I think I was still a point ahead.
The crucial thing is it was no longer going to be possible for me to force a tie on objectives.
Right.
Because the way I had even so far behind on units, the way I had a kind of foot in the game was, had I succeeded in those charges, so had failing in all those charges set me back a turn in terms of tempo, basically.
Yeah, it did.
So if I'd held on to if I'd kept it 2 and 2 on objectives, even if we're rotating around the board chasing each other,
Yes.
the Purple Sun stays in your territory because neither of us are controlling
And then you
it.
get those 3 points, which would have
3 points at the end,
secured it.
which puts me 2 ahead. But at this point, I think we realised that depending on how my run and charges went, you were either going to be 1 point ahead or 4 points ahead.
Exactly, yeah. And at that point, we decided that the Stormcast had done enough. They'd stomped enough Zinch for one day.
Indeed, so we called it there. But it was a really fun game. I really
It was
enjoyed
great. I had a great time. Yeah, it was lovely. Really fun. I just love big infantry battles. And we didn't really have... I guess you had sort of cavalry with the...
I think discs count.
Discs are kind of cavalry.
They're probably the most abstract horse.
Yeah, the most abstract horse. A very flat horse. Very flat, floaty horse. So you had that pace, which gave you great potential advantage. But they just got caught by those Retributors. I think that was a big part of the game. Your failed charges was a massive point. But I think the Retributors just about disrupting your elites was a big point.
I think that's absolutely right. I think also charging them into Tantris was a mistake. I think they could do loads of work, I was it was a gamble. It was like if he had had the kind of turn he had against the Ogroid,
Right, yeah.
he may have died that turn.
Yes, true.
But he didn't. He had a good turn, 10 damage. Suddenly, that unit's absolutely ripped to pieces. The other big thing there was that like playing for the double turn is always risky, particularly now that the person who goes first has odds on to win that roll off.
With a draw, yeah.
I didn't really feel like I was playing for the double, but that's one of those scenarios where the double would have gone very differently because I could have just scooted the Skyfires all the hell away, basically.
Yeah, you had the speed as well to get into my backline much quicker if you got that double turn as well.
Yeah. But I don't want to focus on just like the bad luck things. I think I misplayed. I think I should have been more patient on my right flank, your left flank, and just actually held them back a bit longer.
Right.
Because that way I could have guaranteed, because I had obviously taken a sacrifice in terms of command. Basically I didn't really get any advantage from my Coven selection, like the Cult of the Transient Form.
No.
Because the Kyric Acolytes never got into combat, which meant that their fight again when they die thing didn't trigger.
Yeah, true.
And also it meant that they had no chance to turn to Zangor, and they were never close enough to the Zangor unit to reinforce it anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So that was just like, that whole flank didn't work, basically, I would say. Like, I think there's a version of it where don't go as fast.
I think there's an advantage to Stormcast where all their units fight very independently. Like, the unit just does what it does. They're very self-contained. And if you're running into a unit like that without the buffs required, it's going to be difficult. I think the Zangor and the Sequitors basically deleted each other.
Yeah.
But that Zangor unit was an expensive unit and was the main sort of anvil of your force. I think breaking that made me feel much better about the game because once that had kind of fragmented, I had a really good turn with the Sequitors that just, with a good battle shock that kind of cut that unit in half. And once that's gone from his each army, the Stormcast don't have much to fear if there isn't a Lord of Change there with big mortal wound spells.
Yeah, right. Or more enlightened or something.
Or
like
exactly,
that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think one of the choices I made when list building is I had 60 points left over, and I went for an extra command point rather than something like the Geminids.
Yeah,
I think in hindsight I probably would have taken the Geminids because I think the extra mortal wound output and the potential to do like the -1 attacks, -1 to hit stuff would actually have been more useful to me.
Yeah, I fear Geminids with Stormcast. They're very, very good against them.
Yeah, and I think Mortals each really wants command points because Battleshock's scary and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think it's an interesting one. The other thing is like if I think, if that I could have dropped the Vortex Beast and taken something like a Curseling and having an extra hero to run around and provide those buffs and things would have been way better. I sad to lose the Vortex Beast because it's such a good centerpiece model.
It was really cool.
But yeah.
It was fun though.
It is fun to roll the dice and find out what's happened to Tantris now.
He's even slower than he was. Bless him.
But it was really nice to bring that kind of matchup back, and it does feel so different now that we've got like not evenly matched combat forces because, as you say, they're very, very different armies. But like we're playing the same game rather than it being like I'm going to roll dice during my magic phase. And if I get the rolls, good things happen. If I don't, bad things happen.
I think that it's just that both of the armies have moved into the same space. So the Stormcast have gained magic. They've gained dispels and stuff like that. I found that the spells you were casting were much more easy to understand than a lot of the spells that can cast with Lords of the Chains. I'm sure there are some complicated spells in there.
They have really simplified it. Like stuff tends to just do a thing, and it can be quite effective. Like they've simplified them and made them better, which I like because it reduces variance. Like they're less spiky now than they used to be, where it's like you roll a dice and you get a particular effect. It's now like I'm going to pick this effect. Like having a bit more choice in terms of what things happen, even when those choices are powerful, feels better than like I'm going to roll 9 dice, and if this comes up, then this might happen, but it might not, and all this kind of weirdness.
Yeah, and as someone playing that army, I don't mind if it's more powerful. I care more that I can understand what's happening dice wise and like odds wise. I understand D6 mortal wounds is good on a 4+, for example, but rolling X number of dice and then for every 4+ rolling something else, it's like I can't be bothered to pass that in terms of odds and in terms of its effectiveness. And it's frustrating for both you as the attacker and me as the defender because we both don't know what it's so variable that it always undermines the game.
Yeah, right. I like the it's one of the reasons I like the agendas so much in a way.
I
because
really
it's got,
enjoyed
like,
those. I really enjoyed those.
A part of me, like, initially thought it was very funny that, like, Tzeentch's whole thing is, like, you have these hidden agendas, and actually on a Warhammer community article about them, they're called Agendas of Anarchy in the book, but they call them hidden agendas. The idea that you kind of reveal what your plan is.
Yeah.
But and that seems stupid to me because you reveal it and then you have to try and do it. But then I realised, like, that it's kind of perfect for the sort of plotting maniacal villain faction.
Yes.
Like, you have to actually give your evil speech about
Yes.
what you're about to do.
You have to explain your evil plan as you're doing it. Yes,
Yeah.
that's perfect. I really, really enjoyed those. They were great. And it feels like, so you don't pay any points for that. It's just
It's an allegiance ability.
it's
part
an
of the
intrinsic part of the army. I think that's wonderful. I think it's brilliant. Like, just that little edge of just, it encourages you to take risks with a 9-inch charge or just do something a little bit unusual. And I really enjoyed, they almost look like, the tokens you get almost look like kind of fortune cookie things that you take out of a fortune cookie and be like, I'm going to make a 9-inch charge this turn.
So they are from the Tzeentch War Scroll cards pack,
Right.
Not with the battle tome. But to be honest, that alone is kind of like the best thing about that pack. But yeah, no, I really like them, and I'm interested in. I think if we go to 2,000 points and we play, like, if I add some War Scroll battalions and things like that,
Yeah.
there are interesting or different artifacts. There are ways to do more with Destiny dice, to cycle them to kind of achieve different things with
cool.
them. So, like, for example, there's a battalion I really want to run, which I think people might be sleeping on a little bit, which is a collection of Tzeentch mortal heroes of a particular composition. And you, at the start of the game, but only at the start of the game, so you can change it every game, you pick one of them to be the leader of the cult. And whenever you spend a Destiny dice on any roll for the leader of the cult, you get to roll it after you've used it. And on a 2-up, it returns to the Destiny pool as whatever it rolled.
Right.
And that becomes really interesting because it means you can create scenarios where you're constantly rolling Destiny dice back in. So, like, suddenly when you've got those piles of 2s,
Yes.
let's say you've got a Fate Master that can save on a 2,
Yeah.
just spend them and then roll them back in.
Get them back in.
Like,
better numbers. Yeah.
That's better numbers or different numbers, and I really like that idea, and I think there's lots of depth there that I'd like to play with.
Yeah, fun.
That you don't quite get at with 1,500, but could do. I could do if I didn't take the Vortex Beast. That seems to be the key.
That seems to be the linchpin. It seems to be the thing that should be changed in that army. Though I don't know, for the spectacle of it, I'm so glad that was on the table.
It's like a parade float. It's like,
It
why
really
did
is.
I bring this?
It really is. Yeah. It
There's
almost
even
looks
goes like big parade balloon on the back.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Like, why is it here? We just like it, alright?
You just like it. It's good. It's good for morale.
The tentacle creature is good for morale. It's like one of those, you know, like the sort of like trauma dogs, like send them to a children's hospital.
Give it a stroke and
Exactly.
gets your blood pressure down. Yes.
Yeah, is it like the Mutalith therapy beast?
Yeah. I enjoyed slaughtering it.
Thanks, past Chris and Tom. While you were listening to that battle report, we drank some wine. Not really, because that's not how time works. I don't know how to come back from a break. Matt, don't look at me like this. You never, never seen this situation. We have some questions to round us out. What am I talking about? Some questions. Chris writes, "Hi Chris, hi Tom," and I'm going to add, "Hi Chimp," just to make sure you feel included.
Thanks.
Many thanks for the long-awaited return. And we've managed to do one a month later-ish. Yeah. Take that time. I appreciate that being adults has probably caught up with both of you. And time is harder to come by than it once was. One suggestion, if you have a month when you're pretty sure you won't get a chance for hobby or to record, why don't you turn it around on your wonderful community and do community spotlight episodes? I bet people would love it. Best wishes, Chris. What do you think, Matt? Should we involve the community more in the production of the podcast?
Bloody awful idea. I didn't need to do that.
No,
it's a good idea.
Community members do this for Great Crowbar sometimes, which is that video game podcast, so there's no reason why it can't happen for role models.
No, indeed.
Role model.
If there's one thing that role models is good at, it's generating its own things
That's true.
that it does.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a sentence, but also a good sentiment. Like, yeah, no, I think. Well, I was going to kind of expand on this to say that actually, the community's much better than the podcast. It justifies the existence of the podcast.
Yeah.
So, so if you enjoy the podcast, but you're sad that we don't get to do it more often, and you'd like a kind of similar level of quality of Warhammer joke, but in a way that can distract you from work, to an nth degree, then I do definitely recommend hanging out on Discord because it is good.
Yeah, I'm going to get fired any day now.
Oh yeah, we all are. It's but nonetheless. So yeah, we'll probably reiterate at the end, but the Crate and Crowbar podcast Discord, which is linked to the crateandcrowbar.com website, is where you'll find the role model section, which is now a section with its own stuff, and now regular events and team events and nice people. So honestly, even if we don't generate content from the community all the time, although we should figure out how to.
That'd be nice.
What I'm saying is you don't have to, your value is not predicated on how much content you generate. It's taken me a long time to internalize this. But nonetheless, that experience is available to all.
What an experience it is.
And what an experience. What a thrill. What a thrill. Andrew writes, Dear Objects Occasionally, I found myself accidentally playing a miniatures game on a monthly basis. Gloomhaven. Surely that counts. Anyway, I'm tempted to paint my plastic little guy, but in all likelihood, this will be the only miniature I ever paint.
There's a lot of pressure.
Is there a cheap, effective way of making it look good? Thanks, love the pod. Alright, I think this is a really interesting idea. You're only ever going to paint one model in your life. You've never painted a model before. You won't practice.
No,
How do you do this well? Because surely this isn't true for any of us, right? Our first models were as teenagers and were abominations.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Not Hellpit abominations, just...
No, I think my first ever model was a Cairn Wraith.
Ooh.
Just to be on brand for
Nice.
owning a lot of death.
Yeah.
Yeah, I painted it black. Just black.
Good.
It's a ghost.
Good.
That's not any help.
That's
No, it's not help.
You
It
could
doesn't
just paint
help.
it black.
Just paint it black. It depends what the model is. It's a ghost.
What would you do? So yeah, you've got one shot to make it.
I'd probably just I'll just go to the Rakoth and then wash it in Agrax and leave it. So you can't go that wrong.
I feel like we need some context for what the model is.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's true.
Gloomhaven is sort of gribbly, like co-op, not dungeon, like slightly cosmic horror-y city adventure, or zombies. Is it zombies or gribbles? Can't remember. Anyway, in that context, yeah, so easy mode is like, spray it, I don't know, white or light grey, wash it, like Agrax Earthshade, dry brush it, a stone colour, made yourself a marble statue. That's a thing. But if you actually want to pick out the details on the model...
But then the other thing is, he's only painting one model.
Yeah.
That's a lot of product to buy for one model.
It is. So ideally you don't even want to... Do we suggest bag of Sharpies? Because you will use the Sharpies for other things.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
You could do.
Yeah. I think maybe little, like, smallest possible pot of Agrax Earthshade, bag of multicoloured Sharpies from, like, Staples or Hobbycraft or something. Draw, because then you don't have to learn how to use a brush. You don't have to buy a brush that you'll never use again. You don't have to use paints that you'll have far too much of. The downside to this is if you enjoy the process, you've done it badly. And so you learn nothing.
The thing is, though, you don't necessarily need a brush. You could just dunk it in Agrax.
You could just
dip
do the legendary dip.
Just dip it.
Just dip it.
But surely you've got to undercoat the model first. You've got to dip grey plastic into it.
Just dip it in the undercoat. Then straight away dip it in the Agrax.
You don't need details
Don't do
on
this.
a model. Right?
Then you'll have a really cool blob at the end of it.
Yeah. Get a bucket of whatever paint you've last used to paint your walls.
Yeah.
Dip the model in.
I mean, there are cheaper acrylic paints, but again, you're still going to be spending, assuming that you want at least 3 colours, you're probably spending 20 quid on paint and brush.
If you pick paints that have specifically been in issues of Warhammer Conquest, you could probably pick them up for cheap on eBay.
That's a good idea. There are the cheap kind of starter paint sets that Games Workshop do, which are like 20 quid.
Still a lot of money.
It is. To paint one model. It's a really interesting question because it's like, I want to get into the hobby but then immediately stop.
Yeah.
It's like the really interesting, it's like...
There's an on-ramp and then a cliff. And that's
exactly. It's an on-ramp into a wall.
Yeah.
So say, Warhammer is a very expensive hobby to get into initially, and part of that wild expense is all the hobby paraphernalia you need. And once you've got all that, actually Warhammer's quite a cheap hobby. Comparative.
I think you're right. I think it depends on what people are used to spending on their hobbies, obviously. But like, I agree with you. Like,
because compared to like buying a new army and buying into a new console generation, you know.
Totally.
Not dissimilar.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm bound to agree because a principle we like to call the sunk cost fallacy. I just love the idea of like, I want to paint exactly one model and never paint again, which actually sounds perfect to me. Like, there's something about that that's like, a road diverged and I didn't know I was diverging on it and I've gone the wrong way.
Yeah.
Help. Back in 2016, I should have painted exactly just the contents of the Silver Tower box and gone, that's Warhammer me, for me, thanks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I think maybe cheap. Actually, tell you what, here's how you do it. Find a friend who is into Warhammer. No. Is it ethical to advise someone trick a Games Workshop manager? No, that's not fair.
Get your intro painting session.
Yeah, get your intro painting session and
under the table.
Steal paint in your mouth. And then go
Still have your cheeks like a hamster.
Yeah, exactly. And then go home and spit it into a palette. No. I think you probably have to have a friend who paints models and then ask if you can go over and paint with them. And then get them
to paint it and then problem solved.
That's probably the only way to do it, right? Like, go over to a friend's house, borrow their paints and brushes, have a nice time hanging out with a friend, and then never participate in that part of their life ever again.
Yes.
Maybe tell them this is what you're doing. Like, while we're on the subject of how to, handle yourself in a social situation. Say, hey, I only want to do this exactly once, can I come over and borrow your paints? I think if someone said that to me, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also you'll end up with a better looking model that way.
Than either painting it as Sharpies or stealing paints from Games Workshop in your mouth.
Like, the lowest effort to most likely to look not awful is spray it with grey cere and slap some contrast on it.
Hell yeah.
But that is a lot of buy-in. Buying a lot of product for that. So, yeah, find a friend.
Yeah. Borrow a friend's contrast, is what we're saying. Yeah, when they spill it. Or hang around Tom.
Yeah, and get some of that.
Exactly.
Get some free good stuff.
It's free losing your deposit. Next and final question comes from 25 for 25 Questions Champion. That's right, it's Pete Fienia from Discord, who writes, hello there, Praetor Senior and Equerry Thurston. These are Horus Heresy ranks that you can have for Legion champions and things. Sweet. So I'm going to add Consul. There you go.
Thanks.
That's
better
the
than
cheapest. That's the cheapest one. That's the one you get if you don't make any choices.
Oh, fair enough.
You can be a Forge Master if you like, or a Master of Signals, or there's an Esoterist. There's loads of Space Marine roles that don't exist in 40k, which are great.
What's the one with 2 pistols?
Moriat.
There, we'll go with that.
Legion Moriat. Okay, cool. Just a cool cowboy.
Yeah.
My question is, why did I get involved in 30k now of all times? Is there something to be said for just getting into a new game system because the fantasy and the models for it excite you, even though you don't know what the scene is like and the rules aren't necessarily what you're after? Or do I just have a problem with trying to collect all things? Love the pod, Pete/Fernie from Discord. So full disclaimer at the top of the pod, I have agreed to do a slow grow 30k campaign this year. So this is also a thing that affects me. I have made the same mistake. I think, and there's a lot of people getting into 30k at the moment, and I think the reason is because
you're old.
Yeah. Well, there are reasons that are aesthetic, like it has the appeal of a historical war game, but without the Nazis.
That's actually really true.
Yeah. Like it's like a fake atrocity. Like you can be like, well, my army reflects the Raven Guard after the drop site massacre, and that's not a real thing that happened to real people. No. It happened to some pretend space people, and hasn't even happened yet because it's in the year 30,000, which is very far away. I think the other reason is because we're all engaged in some sort of mass psychic act of summoning the end of 7th edition Horus Heresy. Like, I think the idea is if we all spend like 70 quid on rule books for the current Age of Darkness stuff, that they will then update it to 8th edition.
Yeah.
Just to invalidate all of that money spent.
Yes.
Like a kind of, not crowdfunding, more like a kind of vast act of like ritual, hobby magic.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly, a sacrifice. I don't know, the broader question here is about getting into like the appeal of a new game system, like, and it's interesting maybe to try and separate that from the appeal of like a new army or the sort of new project.
Yeah.
Like, how does this manifest for you, and can you resist it?
So, I think the answer is, I mean, putting aside the danger of investing in anything Forge World.
Right. That's a big thing.
On the level of investing in resin and also a company that may just stop producing that at any moment with no warning. Putting that aside, new game systems are terrifying. Like, they're so easy to invest in, and then you do nothing with it. Like my really useful box full of plastic Russian tanks that are probably never going to go on the table. But I love them.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I feel like, in a way, I agreed to this slow grow, partly because I'm cheating, because I already have a bunch of Thousand Suns that I just want to do a bit of work on and rebase and things. And this is a way of actually, like, making good on a series of rash decisions from 2 years ago, right? It's like, I'm going to turn this into a little army, and then that project is done, and this sort of, like, halfway house project that is sort of an army and sort of not, and sort of, for a game system I play, and sort of not, will actually become a thing.
Yeah.
And then may die, or live, or whatever.
Or be reborn.
Or be reborn. Or turn into dust. I think it goes really well for the Thousand Suns. I don't know, it's such an interesting dynamic, because I think it's always there, this temptation. And like, I've got Titanicus sat upstairs, ready to go, and I really want to play it, and it's only 4 models I need to paint to play it, but it's also, I've also sort of set it up in my mind, and it keeps getting pushed until after the next AOS thing, or whatever. I don't know, it's a tricky thing, like, Tommy does seem to suffer for this as much as...
I'm kind of daunted by new game systems. I feel like I find them quite difficult to crack in terms of actually departing what's going to be good in the game or what's going to be fun in the game. Those are two very different things as well, and to what extent you'll be able to hit that sweet spot, both of them, I think.
We've done it like a couple of times, and our experiences of it have usually been brief. Like, we've kind of played a couple of games of Battlefleet Gothic, but we always end up going back to Sigmar.
The rules that we understand the most and
Yes.
can just jump into quite easily. The Gothic's fun, but I'm not very good at it, and don't have the time to invest in getting any good at it at all. Whereas AOS, I can win a game of AOS sometimes and enjoy I've got just such an easy grasp of the rules now after years of playing it that it's just it's like a comfortable bath.
I think I couldn't imagine having an equivalent investment in multiple game systems. I think that's the thing.
Right.
Like, I think AOS is always going to be the one that gets the most time.
Yeah.
And like, I would like to have a perfectly functional 2,000 point-ish 40k army for when I want to play 40k, but I'm unlikely to sort of get drawn into another part of it or build it out in a different direction.
Yeah.
I quite like I've got this little 1,500 point Titanicus force, and I had no intention of building it beyond that. I'd just like to be able to show up to a community event or something like that, or just casual game and play a game of Titanicus and have the models in a cupboard. I think that's probably the way to approach it. I feel like there's also the weight of the hobby side, which I think, in a way, one of the few people in the world that I would give the dispensation to is Fee, because he paints so fast.
It's terrifying.
There's, like, the investment isn't kind of the same. Like, I mean, obviously it is, because the effort is still being put in. But clearly some degree of, like, there's either some degree of laziness, inertia, pain or stress that isn't present. That is, like the psychic tax of grey plastic is something that he is successfully outrunning, and he's the only person I know who is outrunning it. So, like, there is that as well. It's an interesting question, because I think we've returned to it a few times on the podcast, that this is a collecting hobby as well as like a war game and a fictional setting and all the rest of it. And collecting is nice. Like, it just is. It's just nice to gather things.
Purchasing's progress, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's just nice to, but it's also just nice to gather the objects, and then those are yours.
It's
it's nice.
it's nice to.
It does, yeah.
In 2020, it's nice to own things.
Yeah, man, I think that's like, I've had this conversation a bunch of times, like, that seems to be the great key to why this is happening.
Yeah.
There was a tweet the other day, which was, I think it's partially intended as a joke, but I think it was a rewording of another tweet, which is something like, all of my radical friends are XXX, doing this sort of I'm surprised to find that all of my radical friends are blank. And it was just, I'm surprised to find that all of my radical friends are painting Citadel miniatures.
Yeah.
And it really, it's true. Like, there's extraordinary kind of resurgence of miniature painting. And I don't know if it's simply that we, you know, if we're talking about we in this case, we're talking about men in their 30s or people in their 30s who were, I say men specifically because we were people being aggressively pushed into Games Workshops aged 15 and 16 in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Like, we're the...
Free daycare.
Yeah, free daycare for your parents in a way that was far more likely to be a reality for you if you were a middle-class white boy in 1998.
Yeah.
Like,
one of my friends always says that when you turn about 13 and you're a middle-class white boy in England, a little gremlin jumps on your back and he pushes you into a Games Workshop.
Yeah, right.
And he makes you buy lots of skeletons.
Right, it's like if you're a middle-class white man in England in 2015 onwards, a little gremlin jumps on your bike and he gives you a podcast microphone.
Off you go.
Like this, you know, there's probably a bunch of cultural, psychological reasons for this journey to the middle of the comfort zone. A response to some great existential stress, but not that much. But yeah, it's fascinating. But I do think the collecting aspect is a big part of it. And it's something I've had to make peace with over the last year. Like, even as I gear up to this year, which I fully intend, I'm saying this now, in January, to be more about just finishing some projects and not worrying about things, and it's why it's really nice to not really want elves.
I've got
too late for me.
Yeah, you're about to have my 2019.
That's very true, yeah.
I've planned out 2021.
Have you?
I'm at that point now.
Wow.
It's ridiculous.
Wow, you're on another level.
What
What is the plan?
carriage no floors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, that's where the Ether War came from.
That's where Ether War, and that's where it will lie for the next year.
Ah, man. I don't think there's shame in any of it unless you've somehow kind of caused harm to yourself.
Yeah, unless it's ruining your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For context, they all stared into space.
Yeah, Fee, if it is, let us know, man.
Yeah. Just come play Horus Heresy with me, it's fun. We can figure out how Thousand Suns work. I think they failed. They get Perils of the Warp and they all turn into dust. That's fully what I'm expecting.
That's my experience of what they do. I haven't played them once or twice.
That is all the questions we have this month. Mm-hmm. If you would, because partly we got such a huge pile of them over the break and everyone was surprised that we returned.
Yeah, I thought we were dead.
Because they didn't think it was a break, they thought we'd died. If you would like to send us a question for the Miniatures Podcast, you can do so by emailing us at miniatures@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at Minis Monthly, and find the community once again on the Crate and Crowbar Discord. The link is on crateandcrowbar.com, and you're looking for the role models section and the main chat in there. Chimp, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great.
Right.
How can people find out about your about how you feel about Nagash?
They can find out how I feel about Nagash literally daily on the Discord, but you could follow me on Instagram, where I'm very helpfully 37 visible skulls, all in words, all one word.
What is that from?
It's from, you know, the model of the Terminator Chaplain, covered in skulls. It's from him.
Is that how many there are?
I think so.
Tom, how can people follow your exploits as you spill contrast on objects?
Yes, you can find me also on Instagram at Ludo Paints Minis, which is Ludo Paints Minis, and hopefully there'll be some Skitario going on there soon. I'm posted there for a while. Time to get back into hobby.
Yeah. And if you'd like to find me on Instagram, it's Exit Warp. That's EXITWARP, where I basically just post pictures of tentacle monsters now.
Yeah.
It's good. Thanks for listening, everybody. Matt nodded for the podcast.
I didn't want to